This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by OWC, Spectra 1964, Sampley, and Isotope. You're hearing my voice right now on the Spectra 1964 STX 100 mic pre through Isotope, RX, and Ozone, all recorded safely onto an OWC SSD. So get ready to rock.
You got to get that dialed in. If that's not dialed in, it doesn't matter what else you're doing. It's always going to fight you. You're always going to bang your head against the wall. Please hear me, rock stars. Put 100% of your focus into your monitoring until you can get it to the point where your mixes automatically translate. You're looking for 90%, 95% translation where you go to the car and you go, yeah, that sounds like what I was working on.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Want to know how I get a consistent sound quality mixing hundreds of episodes of Recording Studio Rockstars? Well, I've been cheating all along by using Isotope, RX, and Ozone on every single episode. Right now, you're hearing RX declick, declip, DS, deplosive, voice denoise, Ozone multiband compression, EQ, and limiting on this podcast episode. Try out the subscription option with an extended 30-day free trial at isotope.com/rockstars or use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off any individual plugin purchase. Before your band hits the studio, it's smart to have all the songs and notes in one place. But setting up a shared cloud folder can be frustrating. There's always someone in the band who can't seem to log in or wants to use a different platform. Sampley.app makes it easy to add collaborators to a project so that the whole band can upload new songs and make comments before the session. It's file sharing that was specifically built for music. Just upload a voice memo or song and start commenting. Sign up for your free account with 2 projects now at Sampley.app or use the coupon code RSR20 to get 20% off the first 3 months. Howdy, rock stars. Good morning. It's your host, Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Daniel Ford, aka Dr. Ford, multiple award-winning producer and mixer with music at #1 on iTunes and the Billboard Top 20 charts. Daniel has a studio at Studio C of the world-famous Sound Kitchen Studios here in Nashville, Tennessee, and has been on the show with us before for episodes 136 and 218 to share some of his great tips for vocal mixing and other cool stuff in the studio. So please go back and listen to those episodes if you'd like to hear more about that and the backstory for Daniel. Today, we're going to dive into what's new at his studio, what's been going on over the past couple of years, what you're excited about, share some more mixing tips on mixing pop, country, rap, and whatever else comes your way in the studio. Plus, we'll probably dig into what it takes to successfully build up the marketing for your studio and services and ways that you can reach future customers for your talents, because I know Dr. Ford is very talented and very intentional about that kind of stuff too. So please welcome Dr. Ford back to Recording Studio Rockstars. Daniel, or Dr. Ford, I actually forget how you want me to refer to you. Are you ready to rock, my friend?
Yes, I'm ready to rock.
What do all your friends call you? Doctor?
You know, it's funny, as everybody has their own little thing they've come up with. There's been so many incarnations of it. The name Dr. Ford, or Doc Ford all came from this really silly story when I was working at a Starbucks, and I think I must have been like 18, and my mom was more or less on the same street working in real estate. And so every once in a while we would meet up for dinner once a week or whatever, because I was doing, 4 or 5 nights a week at Starbucks as a, post high school job. Yeah. And so there was this Chinese food place across the street and called King Chuan, Chuan, and they had amazing Chinese food. And so my mom and I would meet there for dinner, and the owner of the restaurant, who was at the front desk, was the first one who started calling me Dr. Ford, just as a endearing goof for this young kid. And he would talk to my mom and be like, and say that. And so it just kind of stuck from there, and then it happens to be the initials to my name. So I'm Daniel Robert Ford, Dr. Ford, Dr. Ford is like kind of how it all came. It just came together. I don't know. One of those things.
Well, you
and
probably wrote your name down somewhere, and he read it and was like, "Oh, it's Dr. Ford."
Yeah, maybe. And so I grew up as Dan, and then when I moved to Los Angeles to go to music school, I changed it to Daniel because I guess for some reason, on a psychological standpoint, like my whole life I had been Dan Ford, Dan Ford. And everybody would say it really quick, Dan Ford. Like I grew up next to Stanford as well, so it was just one of those things. Like all the girls would like Dan Ford, Dan Ford. So I just decided I was like, let's be Daniel Ford. I'm studious at 23. I'm going to be Daniel Ford.
All the girls.
Yeah. Well, middle school, right? So then, so just made that switch, and then all the rappers started calling me Doc Ford, and then so that was sort of stuck there as well. So it really can be anywhere in a spec. I'm happy to be called anything. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Nice, man. Nice. I want to see, a remake of Indiana Jones where he's like, Dr. Ford, Dr. Ford. He's driving the car with the box tied to his shoe, racing through the streets of
I love those
Taiwan. Okay, cool. Well, glad to have you back on the show, dude.
Thank you for having me. P.S.
Yes.
If you ever get a chance, rock stars, sit down in your studio and listen to the Indiana Jones theme song. Like, really listen to it. It's spectacular. The mixing is spectacular. The composition is spectacular. The recording is spectacular. Like, everything about it is still top notch. That Raiders of the Lost Ark theme comes on, Indiana Jones theme, and it's like I don't know how that happened, but I think I was just looking for inspiration for a mix or something like that, and I was like, all right, how can I make these strings more competitive? Let me listen to some strings and give me a good A/B. And so I was like, I'm a child of the 80s, and I pulled up Indiana Jones, and I was blown back like the Maxell tape.
Oh yeah, your tire
photo,
was
right?
going back over the edge of the chair.
It was amazing. So I strongly encourage anybody who's composing or producing strings of any sort or orchestral, mix, whatever. If you're going to do it, or now with Dolby Atmos and all the move towards that, I mean, I think it's so powerful to be studying these things as often as possible, even if it's like one song a day. Like I forget who told me that. Maybe it was Jack Joseph Puig when I went to mix with the master so long ago. I think he said that he starts every day just listening to a song, because I think a lot of people forget, and maybe I'm getting on a tangent here, but a lot of people forget to just listen to music in their sweet spot, in their studio. And that's when people say, learn the room. That's what they're talking about. And I've got a great story I could tell about that, but maybe I'll let you.
Well, it begs the question, why is that so common too? Because, first also, let me preface this by saying John Williams is the composer for the Indiana Jones stuff, having, come off all the Star Wars productions, and beautiful stuff. In fact, my daughter, when I was showing her my new speakers in the studio and she wanted to listen to something, she went and picked the Star Wars
I love it.
theme music. And I was sitting in the back room, and I remember thinking, holy crap, that sounds amazing.
You were so proud.
Nice call, kiddo.
Yeah. One tear came out, my little Star Wars baby. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and then also I love the fact that I could bring up anything random like Indiana Jones, and you can just riff on it right there. You've got a whole spin on it. But like, why is it common that we forget to listen in the mixed position? I would pose the theory that a lot of times we're working so long in there that we're wanting a break, and we're like out of there when we're in that relaxed mixing mode. But I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, why do we forget to do it?
I don't know. I grew up driving in the time of Fast and Furious 1. And so, of course, in the 90s, with all that Fast and Furious business, we had stickers on our windshields, and we put, loud mufflers. And of course, I had 1200 watts in my trunk with 210s, and I was beaten out. And we loved listening to music in the car.
Yeah.
And this is before I was making music. And music was something we did in addition to like you couldn't just drive somewhere. You had to like have the experience. And I used to go to this drive-in theater, and I would, take a date there, whatever. And I would like beat out in the drive-in theater in Burlingame, California. And I used to have to pop start my car to get it out because I would drain the battery from the subs.
Wait, so everybody else is trying to watch the movie and you're just playing like bass music the whole time?
Oh, no, I was playing. That's the thing, because it would come through the radio station, right? They would broadcast it. So you could, because, this isn't like the 60s. So we had, you turn to 104 on the dial and you can listen to the movie. And so but I had like subs. So actually I always thought I'm helping everybody. I'm giving them subs. It's like, what do they call it? The like 4D experience, right? And I bring all that up to say my car right now has a stock system in it. And if you knew me, that's like sacrilege. But I never listen to music in my car anymore because I'm here all day working on music and my ears are tired. And my half an hour commute to and from the studio, I've been doing it for 4 years now, to this exact studio lease, which is amazing to me how time's flown. And speaking of, you and I had our first episode. We filmed it 48 hours ago, 4 years ago, which is really crazy. Wow. So it's good to know you, my friend. And you were one of the first non-customer friends I made here so long ago. So
I remember our introduction, man. I remember it. I was leaving I think it was with my daughter or something like that, and we were walking out of Ugly Mugs here in East Nashville, a coffee shop or out of the restaurant. And all of a sudden, maybe we were getting ice cream, and all of a sudden this couple walks by, this sort of stylish couple, and it was like, "Hey, Lidge, just want to say thanks so much for the good fight for home studios." That was you, man. You just went out of your way to say hi.
I think we were at Five Daughters Bakery, right there.
There you go.
Which is, by the way, 210 Jack, the ramen place. Woo, baby. It's right there. I saw you, and I don't know what your hair, I guess I just saw you with your hat on or something.
Oh, I had the long beard and long hair back then, I'm sure.
You were samurai version, which I loved. And the silver hair, and you were so unmistakably you because I had been following your progress with the legal thing. So you were in my mind. I'd seen you in my feed. I don't even know if we were friends on Facebook yet, but I'd like seen people like sharing your plight. And thanks again for all that.
My pleasure. When this comes out, at this moment, possibly when you're listening to this, Rockstars, we're probably still somewhere in the middle of this now, unless my Supreme Court case ruling has already come through, and we won. Let's do all the variations. It's like the presidential candidates have to write the victory speech and the concession speech all at the same time. So, hell yeah, we won that thing, man. That was amazing. And now we'll do the, man. I mean, we tried, dude. We really tried.
No, I refuse.
Sorry.
Refuse this version. I will not live in this part of the multiverse. I'm going to step back over to the version where you are our champion and it all went well. So
awesome, dude. Thanks.
Yes.
Well, so speaking of champions in studios, tell us a little bit about your studio now. And I'm gonna guess that over the past couple of years, you, like other people, have been hunkered down, really dialing in your world and focusing in on the studio. So what's new for you?
Well, I don't remember the last time our podcast was, the second podcast. And of course, you film them before you air them a little bit. So I'm not exactly sure the last time we had one is, but I'm sure we could check.
It was about a couple of years ago, I think.
I think it was pre-COVID. So all of us changed. I mean, look at you and I came to your studio and was at the old toy box before even this new version that I'm so drooling over, by the way. We'll talk about that.
Very excited about it myself too. Thanks.
Oh yeah. When I know exactly the situation that you did. And so I was like, oh my God, he did it. So yeah, I'm really interested, but that's a whole nother podcast. Right. And anyway, so yeah, it's this podcast, I guess we could sum up business of the last 2.5 years, which has been a wild white knuckle ride for me. Now, I'm going to say this, and I say it with humility because I understand what everybody went through. I had the best 2 years of my life. I'm coming off of a career high as far as profitability and volume goes, but it's because of COVID. And I wonder if this year will be as good because of the trend. People are coming out of their houses again. People are coming back to the studio. I've got people driving in now that would not before. So
You're going to be busy making a lot of records. That's my prediction.
I'm interested to see how the trends change. And I think, this is, I got married last year. So not only
Congrats,
was it
man.
great. Yeah. Thank you very much. Long overdue, although she finally gave me the green light, and then COVID happened again. It was such an impactful thing. I think we're all tired of it, but we got to talk about it. So basically, I can be very introverted when I'm by myself. I'm happy to be by myself. I come into this studio room and I'm so happy that nobody is bugging me. The previous studio that I was at for 9 years, which was on a residential property, I had dogs barking, I had helicopters, I had the landlord, I had my wife was the girlfriend at the time. She would just come over and knock on the door and come in. I had just random pop-ins from friends, as you do. Like, it was so distracted, and it was never even my neighbor who loved me, like become a best friend, Chris, used to text me song lyrics that I was working on as like a very kind way to be like, turn that down. So, I'm so happy. That was when I signed this lease. I said, look, I just want to be left alone. I said, I don't mean that to be a jerk, but like, I just want to be able to work in peace. I want a home that I can work in peace. I don't come through the front door. I come through the back door. I have my own private entrance. And that by the sub with COVID was so helpful because,
Well, I've noticed that about myself recently too, as I've been sort of balancing out, dating, relationship, and that against, spending time by myself in the studio. As I kind of came to terms with that and told my girlfriend at one point, I was just like, I realized that I'm actually, if there's a period of time where we're off doing our own things, I'm personally like actually really comfortable just being by myself. I could be in the studio for days, and then I'd want to, get out and do some stuff or exercise, but I don't feel like it's missed time for me. And then I just sort of rejoin the world when I'm ready to come out. It's a funny thing about what we do in the studios. I always equated it to like going on a mission in a mini sub.
Okay. I like it.
The Spectra 1964 STX100 mic pre provides unequaled headroom and linear output regardless of transient audio peaks, capturing critical details from your microphone. The 100 series amplifiers were used by Tom Dowd, Muscle Shoals, and the Record Plant on records by ZZ Top, Aerosmith, and John Lennon. Now you can get that same incredible sound in your studio at Spectra1964.com or call them at 801-797-0642. In my studio, I've got the Mac Mini M1 paired up with the OWC Mini Stack STX Thunderbolt 4 certified storage and hub expansion solution to connect to all my dedicated audio drives, sample libraries, and backup drives. It's the perfect size to stack with the Mac Mini and add storage and connectivity over Thunderbolt or USB. Whether you have the new or older Mac Mini, nothing stacks up in your studio quite like OWC. Find the new Mini Stack STX and all your storage needs at macsales.com/rockstars. So you hunkered down in your studio. What were some of the things that you found in the studio for yourself? Was it, did you find yourself focusing on sort of your method for the music and production, or did you make some, changes to gear and things like that, or any changes to the space, or dial in your own mixing techniques?
Okay, so the best thing that someone could do if they're new to my story and how I do things would be to actually go to Dangerous analog gear, mastering gear, Dangerous music gear. And on the Sweetwater website, there's on the Dangerous product line, if you scroll down, I'm doing the tutorial videos for that based on how I'm running it at my studio here.
Right on.
So there's a lot of Dangerous content out there and just a lot on YouTube. And I explain exactly how I'm setting everything up, because at this point, when I look up at my deck right here, I only have one rack piece that's not Dangerous up here that I'm using, and that's an API 2500. In front of me is all Dangerous stuff, and I plan to get more, not only because they're very kind to me in the prices that I'm getting, artist pricing, but also because it's awesome, and I see it and I want it, and I know what I'm going to do. So
that's cool. Yeah. When I was looking at your stuff, I wrote down a question. Looks like you have some cool, dangerous gear in your rack. What do you use? So
Yes.
keep going.
So Marek, who is now the owner, Marek was originally Audio Alchemist. Well, I guess he still is Audio Alchemist, but Audio Alchemist was, I believe, a brand management company, if I say that correctly, advertising management company. And I think they would do like A&R and some sales and just sort of all inclusive. Marek, if I'm not mistaken, got his start as a working his way up through Guitar Center all the way up to like a regional sales or something like that. And then he just broke off and made his own company. That would be an excellent podcast, by the way, would be to talk to Mark, because he's
right on.
I can make that introduction for you happily. Anyways, and so I got introduced to Marek through a dear friend of mine who is now passed on, and that's another story I won't get into. But he has been so wonderful to me, and so we started doing video content. So I guess, let me just say this. I've done a lot of soul searching. In my own journey, I've shied away from being an audio tutorial person on, like, I started with Groove 3 and I made this one hip hop thing that was called From Drop to Top. And it was like an expose. I brought in a rapper and recorded him and showed the entire process of moving drum loops off my MPC onto Pro Tools, getting it arranged into a beat. Like, no secrets, showed everything up to my skill level at that moment. I think it was 2011. And that was given a 2-page spread by Music Tech magazine. And they gave me 10 out of 10 and a award for that.
Right on,
and it was, it's funny because it was the first one I'd ever done. And I just didn't, it took me like 3 months to do. And I think it was like 40 hours of content. And Groove 3 was, they put a lot of money into the marketing, and it was very successful. Thank you for that. And then I did another one and it was not well received. And then I realized that it wasn't what I wanted to focus my time on. And at that moment, I had this epiphany that you are what you do every day. And that kind of goes back into what have you been doing. But this is for the young cats out there, the young rock stars, is that you are what you do every day. If you look at your life as an average of time spent doing activities, young men, young women tend to be a bit more impulsive in what they do. Older people tend to be more specific in what we do because we've done it a little bit, right? So that's the wisdom of age. But the curse of it also is that we understand our mortality and how much time we have left. So, for example, I've calculated how many albums I have left in my life because I know my averages now. I've done so many songs up to this point. I'm averaging about 2 days a song. If done my way, if you come into my formula, my routine, and you're like, and which is my preferred model right now is you're a single country act, so country artist, but not a band. So as a singer comes to me and says, here's my song. I bring in my wrecking crew. We do it my way. It's my sound of Nashville country music. And I can spit out a record in a day and a half and then bring the singer in and spend the second half of day 2 cutting the vocals and then tune them. And then it's from there, it's sprinkles. If someone's like, hey, let's get a background singer, that's easy. It's an hour. Let's put a pedal steel on it. It's an hour. It's no big deal. But the core work takes me 2 days. And so my entire business model is focused on that. Can I rock multiple songs at once? Can I juggle? How many songs can I juggle at once? In parentheses, my guitar player gasses out after about 4 songs in one day. So that tends to be the barometer for how many songs how many balls in the air if I'm juggling the song, right? 4 songs at once is about my sanity limit. And then I'll track those. And this is multiple clients at the same time. So I maximize the time of my guitar player. So this would be a conversation shift, but here's my process. Day 1, first 2 hours are tracking guitar. Pre-production is done. I've already made the chart. I've already built the Pro Tools session. I've got markers. I've got tempos. We've agreed to keys. So day 1, 10 a.m., 2 hours of tracking guitar with Chris Condon, my right-hand man. And then it takes me about as much time as I spent tracking to edit, process, post-production, and temp mix those guitars. I love guitar players. I love guitars. I don't play guitar very well. And it's something that I just love. And I think that's what makes me a good country producer. So I like to start with guitars because for me, I think it sets the stage for the sonic texture of the production arrangement.
Interesting. So you mean like you've got the outline of the song and the first instrument that's going down as guitars.
For me.
Wow.
But I don't like doing band at once tracking. I find it to be inefficient. I find it to be unproduced. And this is just my opinion. It's just how I like to work. But I believe that when a band is performing at once, you're capturing a moment of a band. You're not producing it. Yeah, you could say to them in rehearsal, you could be like, speed it up, slow it down. What about a second bridge?
And then when you get to the studio, they've like, what was the, I'm sorry, can you remind us, do you have a recording of what the thing was you wanted us to do?
Exactly.
I've had that happen before.
You know, they're going to play it the way that they play it or how organic inspiration strikes. And who's to say that you should get in the way of that anyways?
Right.
Maybe that's the rock producer mentality of like a good producer allows a great band to be a great band. And so that isn't what I specialize in. So I'm a control freak. And so that I would love to work with great bands. I just isn't how it happened for me. So put that aside. For me, I like to work like Los Angeles because my start was in hip hop and rap and everything is layered. It's all layers of cellophane into a sandwich. And so I like being able to manipulate everything and I like being able to produce everything. And so I think my favorite part of the process is interacting with my guitar player, Chris, and being like, oh, that was awesome. Wait, what did you just do? And hitting stop. And I'll stop the recording and be like, let's take that idea that you just miraculously came up with as a conduit for music and like, let's expand on that. And then he'll go back and forth and we'll banter about it and he'll punch and I'll punch and he'll be like, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, no, please, come on. Give me that thing on the left. And he'll go, all right. And then we'll, oh, wait a minute. Like this happened, was it last week? Literally last week, doing a song called Chili Pepper. And so I thought to myself, I was like, okay, but it's a country thing. So I kind of vibed like a Brooks and Dunn track. And then I was like, oh, but it's called Chili Pepper. And I stopped the tape and I looked at Chris. I go, wait a minute. Should we bow to the Latin essence of a chili pepper or should we nod to the Red Hot Chili Peppers? Right. And so Chris on guitar instantly went, oh, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then he played a lick that was like reminiscent of a very famous but like modified it to our song and our chords and made it original. Yeah. And I was like, you're brilliant, dude. Like it was that moment of that organic creation and we both smiled and it sounded amazing. And we were like, there's the song. And that was the sig lick for the intro, the reintro, the outro. And then he built on that for the guitar solo because Chris is phenomenal. And so what we thought we had this Brooks and Dunn thing hybridized with the Red Hot Chili Peppers thing that came across because we just were, poking at each other, being buds. So
what's that? You said the sig thing. So is that short for something for you guys?
Oh, the sig lick. So something that is very common in all EDM music and country music and some rock, not riff rock, because riff rock tends to be the band playing in unison like a great Metallica song or something like that. So in country music, we commonly do something called the sig lick, the signature lick for the song. And so most commonly over the intro, the reintro after chorus one, and the outro, it's very common that you will have a melody played by a guitar that has both a unique texture so that it feels like its own unique mix element, but also has a melody that is either its own unique cool thing or could be reminiscent of what the singer's singing.
Good call.
I usually like to blend it somewhere in between, like playing off of the chorus melody. Mm-hmm. So, if it was Happy Birthday, it was like da 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 da. So maybe he go, it's kind of like vaguely reminiscent, but much cooler. I know that was horrible.
That was great, man. I hope that makes it to the intro of this podcast episode.
But that's, and so we'll play on that too. And I like to do the sig lick as the final sprinkle on the cake when I'm cutting guitars, because you've done your AC/DC hard left and right guitar thing. You filled those in with some layers if necessary. I've cut some acoustic guitars I may or may not use. I always over-record pieces. And then, so during post-production, the second phase of my production journey would be the same amount of time spent editing and mixing and rendering and paring down mics. So when I record, I'm 3 mics or 4 mics on a guitar cab, and I have them permanently set up here in the vocal booth. This is for speed and efficiency. I only use one guitar player right now. However, the way that my studio is wired, if I needed to bring another guitar player in, he would just plug into the wall patch as the cabinet, put the amp in the control room and sit in the control room with me. And then I have a trough underneath this commercial studio. So I've got wall panels and it works great. And so the cab is in the vocal booth, the isolation booth. So I'm ready to go. I never have to set up mics. I can record guitar in 5 minutes and they're perfectly in phase. I've got them put exactly where I want them to be. Currently right now I'm using the Dual 57, I believe it's called the Friedrich clip, the clip. Let me Google it real quick. Okay. I want to say it correctly. Right. I use it every day. It's fantastic. It's
that's cool. I like the sound of it already. Nobody's bragged about a clip yet on this podcast, so this will be a first right here.
I believe this is correct. No, this is not the correct. That's the wrong one. That's the knockoff.
It turns out it's actually gum, gaffer's tape, and 2 Band-Aids.
Okay, so the first shout out, and this has become an integral part of my daily country music production routine. So the Fredman clip, it's Fredman, and it's a 3D printed Dual 57 clip that attaches to your microphone stands. Now, because it's 3D printed, it's made overseas. Where is he? I don't want to get into his story, but he calculated the perfect angle to put 2 SM57s on your guitar cab. One of them would capture the cone. One of them captures the button, right? So that one of them's dead on center and one of them's 90 degrees with a tilt off center, capturing like the side of the cone. And what's fascinating about it is the perfect placement of the angle is phase canceling nasty high frequencies. And it works. It's fantastic.
So the sum of the 2 mics cancels certain high frequencies?
Exactly. And it's the bad high frequencies.
Interesting. So when you set this up, it is one of the mics pointed directly at the speaker cone and the other one's at an angle, or are they both at an angle?
No, that's correct. So I guess you could do whatever you want because the phase alignment is in the clip and the 2 mics. So you could move them. And I think that might be interesting to have an experiment where one was moving the pair around and listening. The hard part would be setting up that scenario with a control tone. However, I set mine up exactly how they diagram it on the website, FredmanDigital.com. And it's exactly what you said. One SM57 is directly at the button of the cone, like just off the grill. And then the other one is above it at this interesting something degree angle. So he talks about it on his website, Rockstars. I would recommend if you're someone who cuts guitars every day, go grab one. They're not expensive. It's it's a cool thing. And he 3D prints them in batches. So you'll have to like get on the list and then he'll do it and then you'll get one. And then, okay, so in my setup, I've supplemented the Fredman because I consider that one mic. If you think about the intent of it, yes, you have 2 faders on it, but the second you move either one of the faders, you would change the phase cancellation. And so the essence of what he's trying to do is give you the sound of an SM57 on the speaker cab for an electric guitar, but also this interesting bonus change to the sound. So simple, who doesn't have 2 SM57s? So go get one used, they're just the best mic to have, right?
Yeah.
And so, I use that and I consider it one mic. Now it's coming in dual mono, obviously, so you're going to sum it inside Pro Tools. And
do you find that you sum them at the same level?
Well, if you want to have the phase cancellation he intended, they would have to be unity.
Yeah. Have you ever tried just putting them into a Y cable into a single mic pre?
No.
There's a thought. That could be interesting. Might be terrible too, but they would be impedance matched, right? Because it's the same output.
It's the same. Yeah. If you're using this, I have a Focusrite ISA 828 bank of mic pre's that I use for this because it gives me 8 of the exact same mic pre, which I love this. It's this, by the way, it's an unsung hero of my studio. I record bass through the ISA 828. If you're a bass player or you're cutting DI bass, the Focusrite ISA mic pre is great. And it's funny because it doesn't have a lot of fame and it doesn't have a really signature sonic, but it just sounds solid. Like the bass player always comments, he's like, man, this sounds great. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm taking him directly off his pedal board, directly into the DI or the instrument input on the front of the Focusrite. And it's just, you can change the impedance character on the front. So I've got it to high impedance because I was listening to it and pushing the button. I just liked the way it sounded. And it sounds great. It's a great. So if you ever come across an ISA 828 used and it's in good condition, Rockstars, grab it. It's a great piece. Or the ISA 1s or 2s or whatever. I'm a big fan. I've been using that for 10 years and it's never broken, solid state. So you don't have to change tubes.
If you're ready to discover the secrets to making your mixes sound great no matter what your studio situation, then check out my free mixing course, mixmasterbundle.com, where I show you how to get great sounding mixes in your studio using simple techniques and free plugins. And when you're ready for more advanced studio skills, then check out recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy, where you can learn from Grammy-winning teachers to help you record, edit, mix, and master your best record ever. Use the code Rockstar right now at checkout for 10% off any course for a limited time. A big takeaway from me on that too is just the discovery in your recording process that doing direct bass can actually be the simple answer to getting a great bass recording.
I mean, that's history, right? Isn't that like 80% of the records made with a bass guitar are direct?
I think so. And I mean, I think about the times when you do want an amp or might want an amp. And I think those tend to lean towards the more rock and roll stuff, like capturing a band again, where you're like, it's meant to sound like the band's amps are turned up a ton. But even that you can capture it direct and just use some processing to really dial that in. The nice thing about capturing bass direct is you can get a really good, clean, full bass tone. The bass player probably loves it because they can hear their bass during the recording.
And they can be in the control room.
And then when you go to mix, you can coax it towards the direction that you wished it was and add the distortion and saturation and all that later.
I always reach for soft tube when I want bass distortion. It's my first choice. Soft tube bass amp room sounds amazing. It sounds great. And then now they have the new amp room plugin. So you had the standalone bass amp room, which is available as a soft tube plugin or as a UAD plugin. And you have all of their other guitar rooms. I don't use their guitar stuff. That was the legacy stuff. But I've been using this bass amp. The first time I used it, I got it dialed in. I've got my preset and I pop it up. And if I like the way it sounds, I use that. Otherwise, I go with DI. It's like a either or thing. I rarely dial it in.
Now, don't you get a latency thing, though, when you start using plugins on the bass?
I don't do it during tracking.
Not during tracking, okay.
Yeah, that's just for like, okay, I got it. Because it sounds great. Yeah, that's the thing. Like you put it up in the speakers and you're like, it sounds great. Especially because you already have guitars. So you're basically giving yourself the palette with which to create from in the form of a DA-based signal, right? So like I could always reamp it if I wanted. If I was like, you know what, this has to be a real amp, I could always reamp it. It's a DI bass. So like, what do you need? Like a little, you need a step down DI box, but whatever, that's easy. So anyway, not talk about reamping, but so here's a side thought. Here's a little intellectual concept. If neutral sounds are fully fledged, are full spectrum, right? Things that just sound good are complete. They've got highs, they've got all subs. If I'm thinking about a bass guitar and it comes in and I put it up on the speaker and I'm just listening to bass guitar, how are you going to dial it in? You're just going to make it sound good. And it's going to be fairly neutral. You're not going to be like, put up a DI bass and be like, all right, let's make this the most unique tone I've ever heard. You're just going to dial in something like, it's missing some subs. And you're going to put that in. And you're going to be like, I wish I had a little more highs on it. And you're going to listen to it. And it's going to be very widely accepted, usable, neutral template from which to start from. I have this idea that when you want things to sound interesting, you're always taking away from them. So like, if I've got a mix up and I produced it, I know the ins and outs of every instrument. I've gone through the process of editing and quantizing, and it's me. And it's the same me on every record I do because it's my niche. So like I'm intimately tied in. Why isn't this working? Why is this feeling washy? Why is it feeling undetailed? Why aren't all these parts standing out? These are the things that you tend to focus on over time, and this is sort of going back to the idea of like averages and how many songs you're doing a year in your preferred genre, you start noticing these things. And so you start looking for ways to solve problems that you encounter frequently because you're in the same lane. So one of those is changing guitars left to right. If I'm going to do a hard left and a hard right, I always make Chris change guitars, even if it's the same model or style of guitar. It's got to be a different thing. That's from Jack Joseph Puig again. That was another tip he said, because it's about at its foundation, it needs to be a separate instrument, different wood, different neck, different strings. Otherwise, that's how you get phantom smearing. I don't know if that's a thing, but we all know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Where like a hard left and a right double become one mono thing, right? So like just fundamentally changing the instrument is 2 Telecasters. If you make country music, get an extra Telecaster in your studio. Just put one in there. It'll get used. I have a banjo. I have an acoustic guitar.
I need to get my first one, but that's a good tip.
Also, the Mexi Strats and the Mexi Teles from like the 90s cost you probably $200-$300. They sound amazing.
Yeah. I think I have a Mexican a bass, a P bass.
They sound great.
Yeah. The Squires.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't need like a $3,000 Rockstar. You don't need the like vintage reissue. Like that's cool if you're a guitar player, but I'm not a guitar player. Yeah. But just having that in here, my man Chris grabs my Tele all the time, because if it's just a filler part that's not supposed to stand out, then you're not trying to make the tone anything beyond neutral. But if you're trying to make something stand out and you want it to be a focal point of the auditory vision, you want someone to sit down and go, whoa, what a trippy ass bass part, right? Like a record that comes to mind is was Keith Urban mixed by Chris Ordalgi, and it was it Blue? I think not. Looks good. What is he saying? Is looks good on your eyes or something like that? Is that one? The one Keith Urban song, and Chris Ordalgi mixed it, and the bass has this really interesting texture to it, and that's what you remember. At least for me, I listened to it and I'm like, whoa, what a crazy bass tone. It's so interesting and not country, but it's interesting and it's unique and it makes the song different. And so I think that is something that we find, is that how do you make things sound unique? They have to sound less neutral, less refined. They have to be less inclusive of all the frequencies, because what do we think of radio? We think of vinyl. We think of lo-fi or dusty, or grimy is usually noise. Of vinyl, something like that. All of these descriptors that when we want a textured sound, it's always less than. It's never more of the neutral stuff to just make it sound.
Yeah, I mean, just think of like a Britney Spears track. You've got like the vocals come in, and then there's that filtery radio one that sets up the chorus. That's the thing you remember. I can't even remember the rest of the song.
Yeah. And how do you achieve these things? It's always a combination of things that take away from neutral. So getting back to bass guitar, and this is a big, very circuitous route. If one was looking for a unique indie tone, they would not be making Music Row country, right? Because the bass is not the focal point of a country record. If anything, it's the guitars, but it's always the vocalist. And so making like, if you're looking to do like up the middle, globally competitive country music that could work with the major labels, which is my career goal, and I'm still working on it. Nice. You've got to be able to mix at a level that is competitive with the greatest in the world. And that is the lifelong challenge of any great producer or mixer, is to be competitive in that way. And we're always inspired. And this goes back to listening to music in your studio, which I recognize I left the topic when I said I don't have a system in my car. And I don't, because I'm tired. And I get in the car and want to talk to my mom. I call my mom. She's, 72, 73 now. And I just want to hear her voice. We don't live in the same state. So literally every time I get in the car, I just talk to my mom about nothing. And give my ears a rest, or I make business calls, or I catch up with family or friends, or that's my phone call time. And so I didn't get a system in the car for that reason, because it just was another $2,000 that I could put somewhere else. And I'd rather get an analog gear or put it in my savings or something like that.
I'm still caught in that world where I love to listen in the car, but I think it's because and I tend to want to listen to something that I'm working on and writing, because it helps me get out of adjusting it and then just hear it there and go like, oh, that hits me right, or that hits me wrong. But I'm with you though, because my ears are usually tired and I can't do it right after I work. And these days I find myself having to be like extra careful. Even when I do podcast interviews, I turn down my headphones as low as they'll go, so that I can hear, but not blowing myself up. But it's hard to do, man, especially in the studio during overdubs. That's when I find it's most challenging because I want to turn it up to feel it out of the speakers. What do you do about that? Do you have a way to make your ears last the longest in the studio as far as monitor volume and when do you listen loud and when do you listen quiet?
I'm really bad about this. I like loud music. I like to mix loud. I like to listen loud. I have a little bit of hearing damage from when I was a DJ back in the 90s and early 2000s. So I was, my whole story, which we've covered before, when I was
turn up the bass.
Yeah, I was spinning house music at the raves in the 90s, and so I was 12 hours in those warehouses.
Yeah, wow.
And we used to do this dumb thing. I didn't know any better. It was I didn't know I was going to be this man that I am today, doing what I'm doing. I was just a kid. I was 17, 18, 19, just banging my head against the wall,
and it was fun.
It was awesome. It was a hell of an experience. So I have some tinnitus, and I'm sure I have a sensitivity to the 3 to 4K range, and I'm sure I've got some high-end loss, but I'm fine with where I'm at right now. I'm hoping that it doesn't get any worse. And so what I've noticed is over the years, I've kind of dialed in the capacity of my speakers to live at a level that is sufficient for my desire for loudness of playback system, but also isn't going to destroy me at the end of the day. And so more often than not, it's this genre of music you're making because of the amount of content in, like if you're making, super heavy metal and it's got that really high gain and you need it to be loud and it's really loud in the mix and it's those guitars, that'll get you. So you got to be careful of that. And the EDM guys too, guys and gals,
right, because you're always having to turn up the low end and the bass,
and there's a lot of content for the synths,
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful about that, and part of that is calibrating your room. And so the knob in my studio, when I crank my dangerous remote, if I go all the way clockwise, the max it can do on my midfields is that limit. Anything above there is where you start to hear. Like it's where it would cause hearing damage, and also the speakers would distort because you're feeding them too loud. So I've calibrated it to sit at a place where I can't go any louder than the thing. Like even if I wanted to, I would have to start pushing stuff in the faders inside Pro Tools, and then you're going to clip the master there. So I've made it, hopefully safeguarded myself that that's the best I can do. However, that's mix level. I could get louder than that if I start putting mastering, quote unquote, on the master bus.
Right.
And so what I do then is I have a hash mark on the knob, and that is where I master for loud. So I put it to there, and I know that like my game is full volume output of Tidal masters equals an average of this hash mark on my knob. So whenever I'm trying to make something fake mastered, faux mastered, or a client doesn't have the budget and we need it to be good and releasable, and at that point, really, I'm just leaning on FabFilter Pro L2 and I'm just pushing some gain into it because everything else is, I have control of it in the mix, right? So mastering becomes fluid with mixing at a certain point, in my opinion, unless you are handing the torch to the next person in the marathon, which I also like to do and I recommend it for objectivity. So I've got very specific monitors placement that I've worked that out. I've used SPL testers sitting in my position. I've got SonarWorks running, and I'm always running meters. And it's funny because what I noticed is as I was coming up in the studio, I never really understood why mastering engineers had all these meters. But then there's this phrase, don't mix with your eyes. But I got to tell you, as someone who is doing it every day, there's a lot of times where I do mix with my eyes, and then I like what I did. Like I listen to it and I'm like, oh, confirmed. Yes, good choice. Thank you, eyes.
Yeah. It's like you got to use your ears, but your eyes, it's almost like your eyes make sure that you're holding onto your seat while you're listening or something, It's like a benchmark. There was Bobby Osinski, who's been a guest on this podcast too.
Love him.
He taught this tip recently that I think came down from Tom Dowd, and it was about mixing with your eyes on the meters, where you would set things like you'd say the kick and the snare would hit the -5 on the VU, and then the rest of the drums, the cymbals would hit the -20 or something, and then you go and put the guitars at a -10, and you just kind of go through and do this quick checklist for quickly throwing together a mix. And I did it, man. And I had my speakers off and I did a mix. And when I listened back later, I was like, man, that sounds great. So there's something to be said. I mean, it wasn't the final mix. I still adjusted some stuff, but there's a lot that you can tell from your eyes. So that's a good tip.
And specifically, if we're thinking about what is it going to tell you that your ears can't? So like, to ping pong off your comment about sort of your preset starting points on the faders. Of course, those are arbitrary based on what you're feeding the fader in the waveform. So assuming that we can clip gain to something that gives you a semblance of what garnered those fader positions, then yeah, it would, it's the way your studio is going to be preset. If you're using the same mics and the same mic pre's, if you've got my same guitar mic set up on the same cab from day to day, song to song, client to client, I don't want to change these things. Yeah. So why would I have to switch the fader positions? They're going to find averages. And so part of the way that I've set up my internal template inside of Pro Tools and the way I've set up the Dangerous Gear analog hardware and the API 2500 is pretty much exactly what you're saying. I use my drums into the drum bus. The drum bus comes out and goes to the API 2500. And so I look at the API 2500 and I've got the threshold set to where the average of all of my songs for the last 10 years since I've had it seem to hit the drum bus where it makes the mix the way I want. This is going to change person to person, the way we mix drums, the way we like to hear drums, blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's the threshold barometer for are my drums loud enough? So what I do is I push the drum bus into it until it's tweaking the needle the way that I like to hear the API 2500 work. And I know I've got drums in the competitive global mixing position so that record to record, they sound good when I A/B to something on Tidal. So then I thought, well, why am I pushing the group bus at all? How can I get that at Unity? So then you add change the mic preposition so that they're feeding higher or whatever, so that you can get it so that you're doing less steps every day. Yeah, this goes to the routine. If you think about it like a rut, then you're doing a disservice to the efficiency of a system that you've built and honed and sharpened and practiced. Because I believe that the better you get at the engineering side, the more it becomes second nature, then the more your artistic side can actually be in control.
OWC now brings you the Mini Stack STX, the world's first Thunderbolt 4 certified storage and hub expander, perfectly sized to stack with the Mac Mini, and the ideal storage and connectivity companion for Thunderbolt or USB-equipped computers and devices. With a SATA HDD SSD bay and NVMe M.2 PCIe SSD slot, you can expand your Mini's storage capacity to gigantic proportions. 3 Thunderbolt USB-C ports enable you to connect to millions of Thunderbolt, USB, and future USB 4 drives, displays, AV mixers, cameras, and tablets, as well as desktop accessories like a keyboard, card reader, or mouse. I'm using the Mini Stack STX paired with my Mac Mini M1 to house my dedicated audio SSD and sample libraries at my studio, and it works great. Find the new Mini Stack STX and all your storage needs at macsales.com/rockstars. The STX 100D from the Spectra 1964 Custom Shop is the big brother to the now famous STX 100. A fully discrete mic pre with dual transformer isolated Spectra 101 amplifiers, the STX 100D is exactly the same original circuit found in Stax, Ardent, Advision, A&M, and Record Plant recording consoles. The sonic performance is identical. Best of all, it will plug into a single space of your standard 500 500 lunchbox. And if you want to add the sound of the famous Spectra C610 complementer, then check out the new STX 600 modules, combining the STX 100 mic pre and C610 into a single 500 module. Now you can get the same incredible sound in your studio that worked for famous producers like Tom Dowd with the STX mic pre's BBDI and complementers. Go to Spectra1964.com or call 801-797-0642. Hey, Rockstars, we're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of the show. My guest today is Daniel Robert Ford, aka Dr. Ford. So welcome back, dude. You ready to jam and kick it off?
Always.
All right. So you were talking about why would you not want to sharpen your knife and hone your efficiency in the studio? So maybe take it from there if you want.
Well, I think that's just, this is where we get to. So there's it's fun to talk about 10,000 hours. But most of those people who've been in the game for longer than 10 years, we've hit that 10,000 hours so many times. It's a funny thing to talk about. So
Right.
That's a young person's first milestone. And now as you get into the meat of your career, so think about, all of the heroes that we have in the field. They've all been doing it 20, 30 years. Sometimes didn't Dave Pensado not win his first Grammy until he was 20 or 30 years in the game? I mean, so
Really?
yeah, and that was Christina Aguilera. And then, of course, we know Dave's story. Not only was he amazing the whole time, but he finally got his chance to shine, and then, of course, shined very, very bright. So, and big props to Dave for everything he's done for all of us. So, I always try to remember that. Like, there's a lot of people who got very lucky with the right place, the right time. I was not one of them. There's a lot of people who interned at the right studios in the very early in their careers. So I actually had a couple of interviews just for my own fun and edification during COVID early. Not that I ever wanted to do a podcast, but I just was, trying to lighten people's spirits. And I thought, well, let me just talk to some of my heroes. So I got
your office hours stuff on your YouTube,
yeah.
right?
It was, and there's only like 4 or 5 episodes, but I talked to Daryl Thorpe, I talked to Ken Lewis, I talked to Ryan West, and I talked to Richard Furch, and there might be one more. And they're just the guys that are at that multi-platinum level regularly. Of course, Ryan is Diamond for Eminem, and Ken Lewis is everybody, and Daryl is Foo Fighters and everybody else. And
nice, man.
I mean, it's and Richard is BTS, I think, and like all those. He's got all those Japanese bands and everybody. Richard Furch is awesome, and these are just cool dudes. And I talked to them, and most of these guys started at the most intelligent way you could start your career, which was interning at a giant studio that had the great clients. And so that's just smart. I wouldn't call it luck. I think that's just like, hey, they were doing their thing, and then they got over to the studio where the real acts were, and they were immediately, welcomed because they were cool people. And then that began their path. And if we want to get super metaphysical for a second, the whole, I love to kind of think about these funny little brain teasers, but every day we have an infinite amount of chances to change the multiverse and change the world we live in, because we make decisions every day, every second. When I'm driving to the studio, do I take this exit or the next exit? Do I, take an extra minute to kiss my wife and the 2 dogs goodbye, or do I run out of the house every day? Because the infinite amount of chaos that exists in the world that could happen to you because you were in the wrong place at the right time.
Yeah. Do you go join us on Recording Studio Rockstars, or do you go join us on Recording Studio Rockstars?
Right.
Turns out we're in every multiverse.
I love it. No, but seriously though. And so you think about that, the decision you make and how it impacts every decision we make, how it impacts. And of course we live in a linear world. We live in where we make these decisions and we move forward. But, watching all these Marvel movies and just letting it just be fun to think about. I think at any given time, remember that we have the power to change your entire life with good decisions. And case in point, I was at a martial arts school for 3 years, and they got me through COVID because we had a very small crew of 4 or 5 of us who were going twice a week, and we would meet in the park. And so we were in our own little pod bubble together, and we were training martial arts, Filipino stick fighting, Eskrima, specifically Balintawak. And it was sanity in a lot of ways, because it was the social output that I had that everybody was missing. So I would work all day. Everybody was remote. Everybody was video. Everybody was sending me files. It was a whole lot of text messages and not a lot of being in the room together. So my pod existed with Chris, my guitar player, Caleb, the bass player, and then my martial arts crew, and then Hannah's, my wife's mom and sister.
Nice.
And that was my COVID pod. It was large, but we all stayed together.
I love the fact that you just basically said hitting each other with sticks in the park was your moment of sanity.
Well, okay. So the to that point, and this is a joke we all love to tell on the next thing, is that now I pay to get strangled in a padded room. So after 3 years, there was a parting of ways, and the guru moved to Memphis. And so we all went our own directions. And so I decided to take up Gracie Barra Jiu-Jitsu. So there's one here in Franklin, right next to the studio. It's a 6-minute drive. So I can go right after work and go there, and then I commute home. And so after I got married, we came back, and I was like, okay, this has happened to me so many times before, where situationally a martial arts school that I'm attending after a couple of years dissolves, or I move to another state, or for whatever reason we break up. And I was like, so I'm going to make the conscious decision right now, after I got back from my honeymoon, to immediately find another martial arts school and enroll and not waste a lot of time about it, because I don't want to lose progress. I don't want to backslide. And the second you stop any of these talent-based or time-based things, music specifically, you backslide.
Yeah, I think about that as a guitar player. I mean, the times where my calluses are dialed in and my muscle strength is there and my ability to process stuff, and how it just evaporates if I put down the guitar for 6 months, before I pick it up again, or whatever length of time.
Well, so now it's now I started going to jiu-jitsu, and so wrestling, I think, is very cathartic in so many ways. It makes me feel like I'm hanging out with my older brother and just roughhousing, and I love that. And it's funny to be 41, and everybody's like in their young 20s, and they're kicking my butt, but it's fun, and it's a good skill to have, So rounding out the abilities, and honestly, this is where we're at now in my life. I'm 41 years old. And so I'm thinking about the next 30 years of my career till I'm 70-ish. And that's when we would generally retire. But I'll probably do, I'll probably pull a whole lifer, and I can't imagine I would ever stop unless I lose my hearing. So,
well, be careful with the hearing thing. I mean, I loved to rock out in the studio too. And now with my new studio setup and the Phantom Focus system, I still turn it up pretty loud, but I have the ability now to work at lower volumes, and I'm just trying to do that, because I want to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
I still, you're talking about wanting to go from 41 to 71. I want to go from, well, I'm not at 71 yet, but I want to keep going past that.
Yeah, I agree.
Music and
I do too.
I got a question for you. So you were talking about sort of, and this actually pertains to working with some volume in the studio, and how it affects our hearing and the way our hearing changes during a session and during a day, and even just our creative ability to make some decisions, and how that all dials back to setting up systems for yourself that are like benchmarks, whether it's visual metering in the studio, or whether it's, this is how you've got your template dialed in, so that really what you need to do is turn up the mic pre a little bit more to hit that sweet spot. These are all things that you arrive at over some time.
Yeah.
You do something, it worked well, you take a look at it, you tweak it, you come back and do it again, kind of thing. But Jamie Tate, when I worked with him at his studio, the Ruckus Room, that was one of the things he had, where like he always mixed through a console, and he would just say when he left the drum set up in there, and when he dials in a band, it's just like you dial it in and it hits that pre-existing mix chain. And I was really struck by that. I was like, oh, that's cool, but we can't always do that if we're mixing in the box, because sometimes it can be challenging to have plugins on sounds and stuff like that. Are there some ways that you are able to do that in your studio, as far as like, record into things that are balanced properly so that you know when you're hitting that sweet spot, or any solutions or challenges around that?
Well, again, this comes back to my process, which is going to be individual to everybody, but the way that I like to make music and the specialty that I've chosen. So I, for a long time, was open to being either a producer or a mixer. And when you're mixing things, I think there's the chaos of whatever you're going to get sent, and you have no idea. And so all you can really do is prep yourself and have a system of intake where you build it into your template. And so, for example, whenever someone asks me to mix something, the first thing I do is I, of course, get all the folder trees built and build a Pro Tools session. And then I bring the stems into the Pro Tools folder, but they're not into Pro Tools yet. And then I reach for Stereo Monoizer, which, if you don't have that, Rockstars is a cute little plugin that was made by one of us. And I think, was it Blake Eisman? Is that right? Eisman? Blake? I think that's right.
I'm not sure, but I started using it maybe after learning about it from you or somebody on the podcast, and now I've used it for sessions, and it's great. It's
amazing.
Takes incoming stereo files, like let's say somebody recorded in Logic or something, and then you just get this pile of stereo files. You get like stereo kick drum, what?
Yep.
But it'll go through that whole folder and it'll figure out what's mono, what's actually stereo. It'll even give you like a little color indicator saying, hey, this one's very stereo, or this one's just mildly stereo, so you can decide if you want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And then it sort of
pan. It'll tell you if it's just pan slightly left.
Right.
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant piece of software, and it's just a very quick. I love things that are just like put it through a tube and spit it out the other side.
Right. Well, you have to when you're trying to work quickly and efficiently, like you talk about in the studio. Right.
So what are we? What is the general we hoping for as a professional? Is you're looking to build a small business where you have a profitable situation, where you can live a good lifestyle and be happy and support the family the way you see it. This is the general.
I have one addition to that.
Yes,
and rock the fuck out.
Well, yes, but okay, but let's pull emotion from it, and desires and goals and ego. Let's get down to just brass, like primal needs. I want to be able to support my family on music for the foreseeable future, as a man, as a provider, as a patriarch. I want to do the thing I love doing and get paid to do it. And I've had to come to terms with, I may never be rich and famous. I may never win a Grammy. I may never get my platinum record. I may never make those connections on Music Row that I've been striving my whole life to do. But am I happy? I am happy. I get to come to the studio every day, and I come into this room where everybody leaves me alone, and I have my coffee the way I like it, and I listen to good music, and I talk to cool people like you, and I make good money. And to get to this place is a combination of many things in the business aptitude. Like you have to be able to be a marketing strategist. We briefly said that in the intro. You've got to be able to be a salesperson who can land contracts. Then you've got to be able to actually be the producer or mixer to do the work. Then you got to close the contract and get your money and have a system for that. And then you want repeat clients. So you want happy clients that come back and hire you, because we live in a singles world now. I never get called for EPs or albums. When they do, it's when people say they want to do multiple songs, we're just doing multiple singles in a row. It's just like, okay, well, I'm juggling like the same way I can juggle so many songs at once. It's just time on a calendar. It's like, okay, well, then you're going to do 12 singles in a row and we're going to call it an album. But really, it's the same work. Okay, so I can do 4 guitar tracks at once. Great. So that means I'm going to need 3 days of guitar days to get 12 tracks. Do I really want to have 12 things I got to do post-production on all at once? No, but if I do, then I can bring Caleb, the bass player, in, and we can do 1 day for bass on all 12 songs. Okay, so probably
good bass player then.
Oh, Caleb is amazing. Caleb Mundy is amazing. Yeah, that's my guy. I'm the least talented member of my studio band, and that's how it should always be.
That's a great tip, man. I remember my uncle, who was president of a university. My cousin once said that the advice from his dad was that always surround yourself, like always hire people that are smarter than you.
Yeah. That meme with the wolf pack, and the good leader leads from the back. Because what is it really? I'm going to spend all the time doing all the clicking. I'm typing and clicking and doing data entry. And what I really need is those guitars to be world class. I need the tones to be great. So Chris has his pedal board. He's got his priceless guitars. He's got his amp. And then I've got my setup on the guitar cab that always is the same. So I know that I can dial it in. And the beauty of that is it's never like, okay, so I say, yeah, I wish this tone was brighter. He's got all pedals to step on. He's got the amp he can dial in, because we're not hearing it in the room and thinking, I think this will do. This is the band at once thing. We're hearing it on playback through the speakers in a mixed environment.
Yeah, and I've had some experiences working with guitar players brought in who were excellent. In fact, it was a country production that I was doing, and I worked with an artist twice. And the first time they let me bring in a guitar player, so I think we used the band's drummer, and it worked out great. But then we brought in this guitar player, and man, it just sounded so pro. And then the next time they came back in, they didn't want to hire the guitar player. They wanted to use their guitar players. And I got it to sound great, but God, it was so much more work, and it was so much more stressful for me.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, like, how do you, when you're a producer and you've got the studio and you just sort of know that working with the best is going to produce the best, how do you steer your whole business model that way so that when an artist comes to you, you can confidently bring them in knowing that they understand that when you work with this crew, it's going to sound best and that's going to go well and everything. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg scenario, right? It's like, if you got the chicken already and the chicken is the hit song that sounds great, then the client who comes in says like, well, I want to sound like that. And you go, here's how to do it. But what do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, was it an instant transition for you, or did you have to really steer the ship that direction so you could work with these great players?
So this is the hard part, because it's never going to be one or the other. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to develop a situation where you're trustworthy, where you've not only sold the client on the fact that you can do the job, but you've sold them on the fact that you're the right person for the job. And with that confidence in you comes doing it your way. And unfortunately, you have to be willing to walk away. And the only way you can be comfortable and feel confident being willing to walk away is to not act from a position of desperation. The only way to not be in a position of desperation is to, quote, quote, pay your dues. And you have to be booked. And you have to be comfortable in the fact that you're booked out. So right now, if you call me as a person, it's, I'm about a month and a half out on new projects. Because I'm working in a singles environment, I don't have any albums on the board. I don't have anything that's an EP that's taking a bunch of time. Those are individual songs booked by existing clients who have already got my time booked. So right now it's late March, early April. I don't know if that blows when we're going to show the episode.
No, everybody knows I'm an efficient machine here doing interviews. In fact, I'm thinking about the way I do interviews in the podcast and how it parallels what you're describing here, because I do them. I know.
Yeah. So the young person is acting from a position of desperation and wanting to be accepted into the community of professionals. You're not booked. You need the money. You've got bills to pay. So you're going to be a lot more willing to bend on your process and what you will accept from clients, because you're growing, because you don't have the proverbial leg to stand on. You just aren't there yet, but you will be there if you are what you do every day. So if you just keep going and you just keep working and you keep focusing on excellence and you keep rounding the corners and smoothing the grains and you get your room to the best it can sound, and you never accept mediocrity. But you know that you are where you are, but there's going to be a next version of this. The studio is ever changing. It's evolving. It's part of you. And so as you buy new gear, don't get caught up in buying flashy things because people have always had the studio staples. I have always focused on infrastructure because I want efficiency, because plugins sound fantastic. And Serban, one of my heroes, was it? Genia, Serban Genia. I always miss this. I can type it, but he is supposedly all plugins, and that is one of the, if not top 3 in the world mixers. In my opinion, Serban's mixes are always cutting edge. And as far as I know, he's all plugins. So there's no argument to be made for either way. So that said, I still like analog hardware. I appreciate the utility of it, and I like the sound of the pieces I have, and I like where they are and what they do. I've spent a lot of time working on that. But because of that, I've focused more on infrastructure. I have effectively a transfer deck, but I have a dangerous liaison. It's a very expensive relay switch routing mechanism, but it's for fluidity. Would you buy a patch? What's by that company, the digital patch bay?
Right.
You know what I mean? This is not flashy gear that you get to be like, oh, I got an SSL. No, it's infrastructure gear. It's great converters. It's great speakers. It's maybe a Trinov or Sonar Works or whatever it is. Like you did, you've got Phantom Focus. Somebody dialed that in for you. You know what I mean? Like, people complain from their bedrooms, and it's like, I was there. I was in that bedroom, and I beat my head against that wall, and I fought it. And the people said, "Can you sound more like the radio?" And they said, "Okay, we got to go get it professionally mixed." So I think the most important thing to begin with, and this is the martial artist in me, is you have to be able to take your ego out of the equation, because from ego, nothing good comes from ego. There's a confidence and self-esteem are not ego. They're not prideful. You know what you're capable of. That's self-confidence. I know what I can do. I know what I bring to the table. I know my value. But ego is saying, I won't bend. I won't allow. I say no. I'm not open to other ideas because I'm the best. I'm not. I don't know if I'm ever going to be the best, but I want to be great.
Yeah.
And so you have to be willing to play the game of each contract with the client you're with. Part of it's guiding them. Sorry, was a part of it's guiding them, and part of it is bending to the needs of the individual. So for your thing, the first record turned out amazing because you had an amazing pro guitar player who is what they are every day. A pro guitar player who specializes and focuses, they're going to be ahead of the race. That's why we hire these pros. But the band said, well, we want it to be us. And so in that, you say, okay, that's really the end of it. That's how you get that contract. Or you say no. And you say, I don't want to work that way. I only want to put out a certain volume of quality, blah, blah, blah. This is my ego talking. And sometimes it's okay. But that's why in my situation, I've specialized what contracts I accept, because I know what works well in my system. I know what my specific career goals are. I know what my averages are because I've been collecting data in this room for 4 years. And as I finally got the mixes to translate, because I finally got the speakers to sound great to my ears, and finally got the right metering and got the right plugin set up or whatever. And I'm like, okay, yes, now I'm just delivering globally competitive product. So now where are the variables that I can budge, and where are the ways I can't budge? Well, I'm not willing to budge on my guitar player. Not anymore. If you want to hire Dr. Ford to make you a country record, you get Chris and Caleb. Unless you're the guitar player. The artist is a guitar player, and they're like, no, I got to play on my own record. Then I'll roll with that.
Right, because it wouldn't sound like them otherwise.
Yeah, because that's the artist. The artist's got to be the artist. And so you're gonna let Chris Stapleton play guitar on his record.
Well, there's something that comes to mind. So you're talking about, one of the reasons why I would say yes to an artist about the musicians that they're bringing into the studio. Obviously, if a band just says they want to come record with you rock stars, that's a different scenario than what we're discussing here. But in the scenario where you've got, an artist and they have a band that sort of accompanies them for live shows, and then they say they want to work together, one of the reasons is you say, I want to work with this artist, and that's what they want. So that's a reason. Another is I recognize that this artist needs to, be able to survive the incubator process, and they're going to need that band as part of their crew, or they'll never sort of get escape velocity in the first place. And so therefore we'll record together in the studio, because then the band is, part of the whole picture for the live shows and stuff like that. But the consideration that comes to mind here, and you talk about it, Daniel, Doctor, is, this idea that when you say yes to the band doing it the way they want to do it, and then you make the record that way, you may have gained one client, but if the record doesn't hold up to the standards that you can visualize for yourself in your production and your studio on a bigger scale, then you may not gain the next client, because they might not they might listen to the end result and get nothing from it. Whereas when your quality level, when you set a really high quality level, those future clients, future people who come and listen will go, holy shit, this sounds amazing. I want to sound like that. And then I guess one last thought too is just this idea of the ego. Sometimes our ego is the inability to say no, I think. Sometimes, we say yes to things that we don't want to do because we're afraid we're going to be left out. And I think that's our ego talking too.
It's interesting. I will think about that. I could see how that is valid because each individual and how we make decisions is the sum of our life. So if that's the way and your ego pushes you to make decisions, I guess that could be considered like a peer pressure situation, right? Like ego is saying you have to go to the party and do the drugs with the kids at 90210. Right? Like whatever that is.
Did you say 90210?
Right? I was envisioning like the Peach Pit and all that, right? So that's, anyway, sorry, that's old man reference. I think, okay, I'm just at that point where I'm shifting my mentality on things. And so look, 2014 Dan, Dr. Ford says yes to everything.
Right.
2022 Dan, Dr. Ford says no to a lot of things. Why? Because is that my ego saying no? No, it's because I'm not always the right person for the job. Now, the beauty of that is I'm in a position where I'm booked out doing what I do for about a month and a half. I've collected a book of business here in Nashville that is, there, and these people are all over the world because of the nature of COVID. And really, it helped me. It expanded me. I got accepted to sound better on the platform, and I've pushed my marketing that direction. I find the platform to be interesting. And it's, anyways, that's a 2-hour conversation just in that.
Well, we can start going into that because, one of the questions I had was talking about your website, which looks great, and how dialed in it is in terms of telling your story and having a goal. And then also I saw your sound better, which looked great too. So go ahead and talk about all that stuff.
So if you know me, you know that I was raised with a real estate mom. So my parents divorced when I was an early teen going into high school, and my dad was out of the house, and I won't get into that story, but all's well. And anyways, so she was always, she was trying to rebuild. All right. So my powerful mom got into real estate. She sold, she had a dance store. So she was selling ballet shoes and such, and sold that and needed to support her family and wanted to make sure she could pay for better high school, because the public school that my sisters went to would have been the ones we went to, and it was not great.
And this is all out in California? Yeah.
Calmont is the studio where, was it Dangerous Minds? The story of Dangerous Minds was Calmont. That's so that was either that. I was going to go to Sequoia High School or Calmont, and my sisters went to Sequoia, and it's just both of them were not good schools. And that's not to say they're not good now, but at the time in the 80s and the 90s, it was a different era. It wasn't Silicon Valley wasn't Silicon Valley like it was then. It was different. Mm-hmm. So anyways, so I learned so much from my mom and how to approach selling yourself, how to approach marketing. I watched her. I helped her as her secretary for a couple of years before going back into music after Starbucks. And then I watched her, and I put stamps on mailers for her and just studied. I studied. So I've modeled so much of my business after real estate. So I would say this: if you ever need help in how to run your business, go get some readily available real estate material on how to do it as a realtor and the processes they use, because it's very easily adaptable. You just shift the lens.
Interesting.
But the process it's very similar, especially right now. I'm paying rent to a commercial lease in a big building. My mom paid office fees to have her real estate office in a brokerage. It's the same. It's just I'm in an acoustic room and she was in an office. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the model is no different, just that my mom was splitting commission on everything. So because of the nature of real estate agents is that she would pay a desk fee plus a small percentage of her commission. I don't pay a commission to anybody, but I still pay a small percentage to the government. So what's the difference?
So you just finished an awesome mix and sent it off to the band, but the singer texts you with lyric changes, the drummer emails you wanting a different fill, and the bass player DMs you on Instagram about a wrong note in the chorus. But which mix version are they talking about anyway? Don't you wish there was an easier way? Samply.app comes to the rescue as your ultimate mix assistant, streaming high-quality mixes so your clients can easily listen and send notes from their mobile phone on the road or a computer back in the studio. All mix comments are time-stamped directly onto the correct mix version with no confusion, and everything is easy to find in one location. No more mixed-up mix messages from the band. It's file sharing that was specifically built for music, and it all works in your browser with no downloads required. Sign up for your free account with 2 projects now at Samply.app and use the coupon code RSR20 to get 20% off the first 3 months when you're ready to upgrade. Have you ever wished you could remove the click track bleed from a singer's vocal mic, the sound of shuffling feet from a full choir, or clicking noises from the valves of an otherwise brilliant trumpet solo? These are just some of the incredible things I've been able to clean up, edit, or remove from a recording using the magic of iZotope RX. Great for mixing with a collection of plugins for your DAW to manage plosives, clicks, S's, noise, buzz, reverb, breaths, and even guitar fret squeaks with a set it and forget it simplicity that lets you focus on your creativity in the studio while you let iZotope handle the audio challenges. If you've ever wanted to truly feel like a magician in the studio, then iZotope RX is your magic wand. Try out the subscription option with an extended 30-day free trial at iZotope.com/rockstars or use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off any individual plugin purchase. What are some other things? I mean, of course, your mom didn't have websites.
She did. Absolutely. My mom
okay.
did Facebook advertising. This is not so long ago. She's been retired for a few years, but she did Facebook ads on every listing she took. So
is that something you've done? You've explored Facebook ads as well?
I have explored Facebook ads. I'm not a pro at it. I wasn't getting huge return because I don't want to be an audio personality. It's just not I don't want to put the time into social media because, again, you are what you do every day. Mm-hmm. So when I just have this, maybe it's a gloomy kind of concept, but it's like if you spend all day making audio tutorials, you're not producing records every day.
Right.
You're not honing your knife.
Fair enough. So what are some of the things that do seem to work well for you in terms of the elements of marketing that aren't making a record?
Okay, so I do like a lot of what the Six Figure Home Studio podcast and Facebook group. Yeah. I like a lot of their stuff.
Those guys are great. Now I think it's Six Figure Creative is the new website, or the new Chris Graham and Brian Hood.
Yeah, those guys. They're making a hell of a community, and that's a pretty straight up honorable situation. So there's great information over there. Beg, borrow, steal. As someone who is doing an active 6-figure studio, brag.
Nice.
It took a long time to get here. It was very linear progression. I did my taxes every year. I paid into taxes. I did not cheat my taxes because I wanted to know where I was at. I was open to paying taxes because up until a certain point, you can write it off and you can end up not having to come out of pocket. Up until about, I'm not a tax accountant, so this is not legal advice, but up into about like $60,000, $70,000 worth of income in California, I could nil it out into zero income and I never had to pay because there's so many things you can expense it on, your rent and the gear and whatever.
Yeah, especially with the home studio too. A lot of home expenses become business expenses.
Yeah, so it really wasn't an issue. Taxes really weren't an issue. So I just went ahead and just reported everything, cash to everything. I just wanted to be, I wanted the data. And so I was able to chart my progress every year, and I would make an extra $5,000 the next year. And I would I did 10 extra this next year. And I went from 60 to 70, and then I went from 70 to 75, and then I went 75 to 85. And it's, and you can look at it on a graph. And then I remember the first year that I broke 100, and I looked back and went, whoa, where did the time go? Because I was so crazy. I was working 6 and 7 days a week. This is, and I was like, it was crazy. It was crazy. And so I've throttled back a little bit because I'd rather have my nights and I'd rather have my weekends. And so I still work weekends, but I try not to work every weekend, 7 days a week. There was times when the chips were down in 2020, when everything shut down, there was a couple months where it was bad. It went real bad, real fast, and I got a $2,300 lease payment due every month.
Yeah.
So it was bad, and a mortgage and a car payment. And I'm not ashamed to say that I needed some help on that from the government, and thank God they were offering it because of COVID. And I got off of that as soon as possible. As soon as it was, correct to be like, all right, cool, thank you for the help. And now I've got clients again. Everybody came out of their shells, and I was back in the game. So it didn't hit me too hard, but there was a time when it was scary. And so
you were working 7 days a week whenever you could?
Absolutely. Well, and again, as long as the phone's ringing, people want you to do it, and the money's good. So I think there's this funny XY graph. If you can visualize a good 3-dimensional XYZ graph in your head, experience, ability, talent, your band of studio musicians, the mixes you can put out, the mastering you can put out, whatever it is that gives you the sound that you can give that's globally competitive. Over time, you start having confidence in your ability. And at a certain point, this directly equates to your savings account. So I have this belief, and this is a funny thing, but your savings account directly influences how you approach the world every day. And this is when we talked about earlier. I said acting from desperation. Is that, I like to understand things. I'm a thinker as far as I feel like if I understand it intellectually, then I can move through the world blankly. And that's a martial arts thing too. It's what the Buddhists call meditation and movement. I studied at the Shaolin Temple in Los Angeles for a number of years doing Kung Fu under Shifu Xianfan, who is a real Shaolin master monk with the jibai on his head like Dragon Ball. Like he's
cool.
real.
Right
and I
on.
got to be with him. And so they call it meditation and movement. Why do they do the forms 8 bazillion times? Because when it's time to do the form, your brain should never be a part of the equation. You've done it so many times, and that talks about the routine of what we do every day in audio engineering. I don't want audio engineering and my brain to be a part of the equation. I want the interaction between the guitar player and myself, where I'm producing, to be the equation. That's what it is. So just to get back to the meditation and movement thing. Oh my God, I just totally lost my train of thought thinking about Kung Fu stuff.
Well, we were talking about a variety of things. We were talking about the marketing kind of stuff, and I wanted to at least get you to kind of explain some of the basic elements that are on your website that you find to be helpful. You've got, testimonials, studio tours, stuff like that.
So again, this is where it comes to the real estate thing. So you have to have, and this is where the 6-figure podcast, they call it your funnel. And so what are you doing? You've got to have some degree of appearance on the Google sheet. So everybody uses Google. So that's just the way it is. So you've got to be paying for AdWords. That's a game that you got to do. Someone can explain that better, but I pay for Google AdWords. I have a monthly budget of somewhere between $50 to $250, depending on the metrics. I throttle it depending on my need for clients and how my leads are going. And you have to be active with that. And so,
and what does that do? That makes it so that your website makes an appearance in the search?
Yeah. And how high it is. So there are keywords that you buy, Google AdWords, and you, when someone Googles these words, you show up on the list. It's a very expensive list to be a country music producer in Nashville.
Right.
All right. So, same thing with Los Angeles, hip hop producer in Los Angeles. These are expensive keywords, and Sound Better has a lot of them purchased because they want that lead. And so at a certain point, you're fighting the good fight, but you have to have some, even if it's your own name, you have to have it. And if you for example, recording rock stars, you need these hashtags to go to your website so that they don't go to Sweetwater, because companies like Sweetwater will take them because they want, Sweetwater pays AdWords. They're the number 5 in the world for AdWords. Somebody was telling me that, the amount of AdWords they're paying, because that's the big business, and they have the pockets to do it, and they want you to go to Sweetwater instead of to the manufacturer's website.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of times you search for something and theirs is the first thing that pops up.
So if you're not Google AdWord paying for your own name and your own studio name, and so that otherwise when someone types in your name because they're directly looking for you, I want to check out Liz's studio, then it goes to Sound Better. That's not good. unless you're using Sound Better, which is a different conversation. So first step is you have to have a good Google AdWords marketing budget. And now marketing budget, maybe you're not too worried about Google AdWords. Maybe you want to put that marketing budget on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but you have to have a marketing budget, which is the quintessential flashing neon sign in the virtual world that says, hey, look at me. I'm right here. Come to our website. And it's that flashing neon sign. We don't do storefronts anywhere. So virtual storefront, maybe we'll be back to storefronts in the metaverse. That's interesting. But either way, you have to have the flashing neon sign. When they click through to the flashing neon sign, your website has to meet what we call the sniff test. And at a very quick scroll, it has to look good enough that you look professional. The sniff test, right? Is this still like when you pull milk out of the fridge? Is this still good? Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So first things first, it's got to look expensive, whatever that means.
Or it just has to look like what you're hoping your clients will think you're supposed to look like when they get there.
Yeah. Unless you're going for less than, like we talked about, putting texture on an instrument in the mix, you could intentionally lo-fi your website and make it look like Nintendo. Well, how cool would that be? Right. So like whatever it is, you gotta have a gimmick, right? It's like, and that's again, gotta have a gimmick, right? And so in the real estate world, they always had a tagline. And so my mom was, I forget what her tagline was.
Buy a house from me.
No, it was better, smarter than that. We like puns. So it was like, so mine was a key to a smart move. So it was like when I was her assistant, I had my real estate license. So it was Daniel Ford, the key to a smart move, nice. Right? Because you got to have a gimmick, right? So on my website, literally, let me pull up my website for you.
Now it's the key to find your key to a smart groove.
Bro, that's good.
We're here for you on Recording Studio.
I love that. Hold on, my website's not pulling up. Actually, I got to get my.
That's because I've taken it over. I've got it on my screen instead.
That's a lot. No, it says I need to pay for my. It says unsafe Google.
Yeah. There's some Google thing.
I have to pay for the certificate, the security certificate. Right. No big deal. It's like
but I mean that's the stuff for rock stars. Reminder, like there's a dumb part. There's a pain in the butt dumb part of marketing and websites and everything that we do have to stay on top of. And there are things like that. They're like, oh, they changed the update, or the Google AdWords stuff that's not seen, but you need to have it going.
Okay, so you go to my website, and what's the first thing you see? You see
it's you and your studio looking awesome and pro, and your logo.
And then it says exceptional quality for discerning artists. What am I marketing and branding? I'm branding myself as the level above the average, right? And it's important. Do I believe myself to be better than anybody? I don't know, but I'm marketing this product because this is what I'm fighting for every day, global competitiveness, right?
I'm going to push back on that. So instead of worrying about whether you believe yourself to be better than anybody else, we can confidently worry about the fact that the client we're trying to bring in deserves better, right? So we can accurately say, this person is coming in the door, they would like to have access to something really great. So that's really the focus.
Yeah. And this is the experience. So I like to think of it as a white glove experience. I want you to come in and there's no dust on the gear, right? That's it. The white glove is the butler's glove.
That's a hard thing to do too. I can tell you with my studio. My control room door opens right to the outside too.
Well, so I present very gentlemanly, especially with female clients, female presenting clients. I'm very gentlemanly with them because I've had a lot of clients who've had incredibly bad experiences in studios as women. And
not in Nashville. That never happened in Nashville.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so, also my wife has 100,000 stories of being a country singer. Anyway, so I want to be a safe place for LGBTQ+. I want to be a safe place for everybody. I am an all welcoming gentleman when you come to my studio. So part of my routine and how I deal with people is to be that chauffeur of exceptional quality. And if you think about the service you're delivering, service is the product, but the service is also the whole experience. What do I want my clients to feel when they come in? I want them to have fun. I want them to feel safe. I want it to be enjoyable. I want them to brag about it on Facebook. If you're a jerk to them, they're not bragging about you. I heard about a female producer here in town. I just got one of her clients because they came to me and upped their budget because she made them cry when they were singing on the microphone. And literally, the person told me, that was the first thing he said, well, I was with, and I'm not going to, of course, mention anybody, and said, she made me cry. I left her studio crying when I went to sing my song. Okay. What does that tell me? That tells me that this person needs a soft hand. They need to be encouraged. They need a place that's safe, that they can come in and they can learn how to be a studio singer, because this person probably isn't the best, right? Because why were they made to feel bad? Because someone was producing them harshly, trying to get a better performance. Okay, so this person is somewhere in their early stages of development and needs me to be a guide and kind and just love on them a little bit. You know what I mean? As a friend, as an older brother, like, come on in the studio. This is going to be great. So this goes to the psychology of how you produce vocals, but I don't want to totally sidebar. So,
and you've done some great episodes with us talking about that.
Well, thank you. So here's the front end of the funnel. I want you to see it, the sniff test right there. This is what I've got, and I want you to see my face. So when you show up or get me on video, it's not the first time you've seen it. This is who I am. This is what it is. Okay.
Right.
So keep those photos updated too, because nobody wants a 10-year-old photo that you looked way different and they don't recognize you. That's not right. Just be you.
That's never happened to me. I've never gone from long hair and a giant beard to short hair and a short beard.
Yeah. Well, at least you're a public persona, so people can easily look at you and be like, oh, yeah, he cut his hair. Okay. So I'm a bit more Wizard of Oz, so I pay no attention to the man behind the counter, right? So they do that. Then what do they want? We're audio people. The first thing that you scroll down, it's my audio reel. Now,
what does it sound like?
2 years old at this point. I need to update that. I updated that in 2019. So I'm like 3 years behind at this point on that audio reel, but I need to do it. First thing you do is hear. They got to hear what you're doing. And because that's the secondary sniff test. It's the listen test, right? They're going to hear it. And the first thing that comes on is what they're sold on. And that's so hard because it's like, if you're making excuses for your music, it doesn't go in your reel.
Yeah.
And you're not ready.
And so what you did is you assembled clips from, in your own controlled version, you assembled a series of clips from different things. So you can press play on one thing and you hear some samples go by, as opposed to another version, which is you can have like a streaming player up there, whether it's Spotify or something else, that can be fine too. But one of the challenges there is like, well, which songs do you put at the top, and can you control which, who's to say that when somebody comes back another day, it's not flip-flopped or things moved around and they hear your worst example first.
And what are we also doing? We're presenting what we want them to hear in an order we want them to hear it in that is consistent and shows off time. There's 100 songs on my production reel that go in a bunch of different genres. And I picked, I was too many country songs. Let's give them a rap song now, right?
Right.
So and they all sound sonic. I remastered everything so it sounded good contiguously. And so this is your opportunity. And look, if you need to put some money and invest into this Rockstar so that you hire a session singer, because nobody pays attention to anything if the singer's bad.
That's so true. That's so true.
You're right. Nobody's going to say, hey, that singer, oof, but man, that track is great. No. They turn it off. I can't listen to this. So if you need to hire a session singer, get some session singers on. If you're new and you're building this and you're like, I make good tracks, but I don't have connections, then pay a session singer $150, $200 to sing on your thing so that you have a banger of a vocal coming out when they hear it. And they're like, whoa, this dude knows how to mix records or big vocals or whatever.
Do you want to record killer drums in your home studio? Rockstars of Drums will show you how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with examples from a Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Do you want to know how to master your own music at home? Rockstars of Mastering will show you how with plugins in your DAW so that your music will sound awesome when you finish your mixes. And if you're looking for a step-by-step solution for a pro-sounding mix that won't take years to learn, the Ultimate Mixing Master Masterclass with Craig Alvin will show you a proven method for creating Grammy-winning quality mixes that you can apply in your home studio right now. Or if you just need to learn the fundamentals of creating a great sounding mix, then register for my free course, Mixmaster Bundle, to get great mixes using simple, free plugins. And get started now making your best record ever at recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy. Use the code ROCKSTAR at checkout to get 10% off any course for a limited time. I'll take it a step further and suggest rock stars that if you have a demo reel and the singer sounds amazing and the track sounds totally average, you'll probably still impress people and get
Agreed.
somebody wanting to work with you than if it was vice versa. And I remember once when I was, thinking about this stuff and I was out and about listening to some music, I started a practice where I was like, okay, when a hit song comes on, imagine removing the vocals and just listening to what was left. What do you find? And a lot of times I was struck by, I was like, oh, I could do what's left. Oh, I could make that,
Yep. And that's good practice, by the way, too. I do a lot of that practice work, or I did a lot of that practice work when I was coming up, where I would try and remake productions just by myself. And even if it was cheesy VST contact instruments instead of a real musician, it's just the practice of doing it and being like, oh, they put that there. Oh, they put that there. Oh, that's interesting how this part does this and the other part does that,
Yeah, that's smart. Super smart.
It's great practice. And that's the thing. People, again, going back to, do you listen to music in your chair? Most people don't even practice in their chair. Most people just sit down and start working and have no barometer or reference to what good, quote, quote, good is, or what great is. So for me, the first thing I do when I get in the studio is I go to Tidal Masters, because I'm all about that, and listen to what's hot right now. So I always go to the top charts for country and I say, who's the top 3? And I needle drop those and get the sonics in my ears. And then I start working.
That's cool. A version of that for me this year was really looking closely at all the Grammy submissions and starting to make some playlists for it and just listening that way and thinking about like, here's the top nominations, what does it all sound like? And it was really cool. It was a striking experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was very narrow in my voting pattern this year as far as, I voted country music because they changed some stuff. So I only really dug into the genres that I specialize in, because I think that's supposed to be the point, right? Like they limit you to how many votes you can, how many categories anyway. So I put them where I want. Like I did like country and Americana, and of course pop and rap. I did the main categories, and so I'm pretty up to date on the charts because I do like to listen to everything. Yeah. So then, okay. So the funnel, if you don't have them on your website, if you don't get it in the first thing, then the next last ditch effort is your sob story. And I don't mean to like spin it like it needs to be a sob story, but what have we learned from American Idol? If you don't have a story, you're not getting on the show.
Turn off the TV. Sorry, that was what I learned.
Right? Well,
that's all right. I'm just the wrong audience for that. But no.
Okay. But
continue.
But as a global, what have we learned? We've learned that if the singer doesn't have a backstory that we can get on board with and really, we want that person to win, right? It's because they're all great singers and they're all beautiful people. So who's the one who's deserving or whatever, right? So that story is quote, quote, your bio, but how you present it on your website's up to you. So for me, I thought, what I want to do is I want to show pride in what we do. And so I want to show you the things I can show off. So for me, I go into a brief description that I stole from somebody else, that I saw this kind of format with the 5 columns on somebody else's website. And I was like, oh, that's smart. Beg, borrow, steal. So I did my own. And then underneath that, I decided to shoot videos because I thought, look, how do I legitimize the fact that I have a commercial suite that puts me above the people in their bedrooms? And I'm not trying to be jerk.
Let me pause though and describe the 5 columns. So you cleverly made these 5 things. One's songwriting, then there's production, mixing, mastering, and I can't see. Oh, teaching on the last one. And it's great because you put in a little 1 paragraph description of what each thing is. And so for a visitor to the website, it's sort of exciting. It's like, oh, and each one made me feel like if I came and worked with you, you would be guiding me towards something really well done.
I appreciate that. And the idea is, can you explain it simply? What are they, when they, in martial arts, when we talk about mastery, it's being able to teach something in its most simplest form, because you have to speak at the level of the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
Black belts teach at a black belt level in the black belt class, fast and furious, and with very little detail, because you're expected to be able to pick that up. So me talking to Liz about stuff, we can just ditch all the minutia, and we can talk about core concepts, because it's us having a conversation over a cup of coffee. But for the rock stars, we need to speak to everybody, right? And so the same thing when we're talking about our clients, what I want to do is, in this 5-column thing, I'm saying, first off, let's make sure we're on the same page. What do you want? And I'm doing that by saying, here's the 5 things we can talk about, the 5 things I can offer you. Now, I'm going to outsource mastering, and I outsource songwriting. And that also helps me, because if they write to me and they say, I was on your website, I think I need songwriting help, then I will probably say, great, I'll set you up with some co-writers, because I don't have time. And I don't mean to be a jerk about that. It's just I'm specialized. And so I'm booked a month and a half out, and I got great people here in my circle that need a shot. So let's get a great songwriter on that's better than me, and let's set you up for a co-write. I'm happy to do it.
That's smart, man. That's because the client's going to appreciate the fact that you offered a solution for them and you're trying to get it going. They just want the problem solved. And so if you can get them working with somebody who's songwriting, well, they're logically going to think, okay, great. When the song's ready, the next step is to come to you to record it. So it's like you're still bringing people into what your specialty is.
Oh, and to that end, when I'm giving someone their consultation phone call and we're talking about what they need, if they don't have a great song, I recommend they don't hire me, because the truth of it is that, like, again, I don't need the business, and I don't mean to be like harping on that, but I'm at that place now where I'm booked a month and a half out. So I'm not desperate anymore. So I can actually treat people better. I can actually treat people kinder, because I'm not desperate to take money out of their pockets. I can say to this person, be like, hey, so check it out. My best advice to you is, don't record mediocre or bad songs. Don't hire me and spend thousands of dollars on musicians and studio time if the song's not good. Yeah. I'm your friend. I'm being good to you, right? Look, I've got wisdom of the last 20-something years. If your goal is to achieve career success, the worst thing you can do is blow your budget on a bad song, because it all starts with a song.
Yeah.
Right?
And then when you get to the finish line too, again, is presenting your work on a bad song going to help you get anywhere as well? So it really doesn't help anybody.
I've kind of, this is the ego conversation, I've kind of let go of outcome. I just have to, and again, this is just, me in my routine. I believe that if I just shine consistently bright, and I put the best of my soul into every song I do, you never know what the project is going to yield you. And at the very least, I want someone to say, yeah, I'm not a great singer, but he was so fun to work with, and what a great guy. And the product, I mean, you can hear it. It sounds great. You should definitely go work with him. That's really what you're looking for.
Right.
So if you can create that scenario, then it's a win. Even if it never downloads. Look, 99.9% of music on the internet has never been listened to more than 50 times. Fact check me on that. It's probably worse than I'm stating. 60,000 songs are uploaded every day. Every day. There isn't enough people on this planet to listen to everything enough to make everything platinum. 99% of the music you make in your career will not be a hit song.
So you're saying we need to start exporting our music to other planets and other solar systems?
Yes, I love it.
Awesome, dude. Awesome.
The Gleeglops are going to need to hear our tunes.
Yeah, the Gleeglops.
Rick and Morty.
Well, so let's see. Next thing on your website, we're coming near the end here, but next thing on the website is you do this great sort of studio tour video.
Yes.
And my takeaway from that was, you're showing the beautiful aspects of something, because Sound Kitchen is a gorgeous looking studio as you walk in the door. And so for somebody who might think, oh, I need that, I want an environment like that, they're going to see it and they're going to think, that's great. I want to work there. Or even like the records on the walls. Maybe somebody else feels like, these guys legit, and then sees that and thinks, oh, that looks cool.
Well, the selling point of my vocal booth is that Dolly Parton has had platinum records in my vocal booth.
Nice. Now,
I
was,
mean,
was she just
that's
standing there holding a platinum record
no, I know.
in your
No,
vocal
it's
booth?
like her Christmas music. She did like a bunch of Christmas stuff in this studio. Dolly was here. Her essence is in this booth. Don't you want to be like Dolly? No,
Yeah.
but for real,
Nice.
it all matters. It all matters. What's
Yeah.
the experience
Yeah.
you want to do?
Right.
Why am I paying this exorbitant fee for this room? Because at a certain client level, it matters.
Yeah.
And I just had a client fly in from Memphis on her dad's private plane, her dad and her boyfriend, because who's this guy? Well, they went to my website. Now we know who the guy is. So we're going to go and we're going to make the best of it, but we're still going to go with her for safety, right? We're not sending her on her own. So they flew her from Memphis. This was last weekend, Haley, and she did great. And the dad, I said to them, it's going to be about 2 hours. Here's where the bathroom is. This is your spot here on this couch. It's about me and her. We're going to have fun. And look, they were observing how I treated their daughter and girlfriend.
Yeah.
So you better be cool.
I've had a few fortunate experiences, sessions like that, where, you know, a dad brought in a daughter or dad brought in a son, and it's a really fun thing to do. I mean,
it is.
I guess if you're an asshole, it's not going to be so much fun.
No, but look,
you know, like helping. I'm a parent, so like I understand how exciting it is to see your kid do something amazing, and it's fun to do that for somebody else. Now, I will go to the next section on here.
Yes.
Very smartly, your next one is this testimonial video.
I am selling you hard on who I am and the fact that you should be confident in the job you're doing. So what have I done? I've shown you who I am. I've let you hear who I am. If you're not sold at this point, I'm going to say, here, check it out. Here's what I'm offering. And then here's where I'm offering it. And now here's all the people that have hired me. And it's from, don't listen to me, listen to my clients.
Yeah.
Right? This is what it is. And what's better than text? Video. I literally asked them. I was moving from Los Angeles to Nashville, and I said, hey, I'm going to reflip my website. I love you. Will you shoot me a little iPhone video? And I stitched them together with the help from an intern. And we put them together and made a little thing. And, you know, it's not great, but it doesn't have to be great because we live in this world where everybody gets an iPhone video. And so you can see it. And we snitched it together. And then my Spotify link looks like it's dead. So good. I'll have to fix that.
No, it was working for me. But I will say that, again, on the testimonial thing, a smart takeaway about the iPhone thing is when you ask somebody to do something, in fact, somebody just asked me to do something. It was Carl, actually. Carl was asking me for some testimonials on my new Phantom Focus system. And I immediately went into that response that so many of us do, which is like, oh, I'm going to have to be thoughtful about that. So I need to set aside time for that. And then I kept pushing it off, you know?
Yep.
And so when you ask somebody, I finally did it, by the way, but when you ask somebody else to do something for you, it's really important to make it very, very low barrier to entry. So make it really simple. Just say, if you wouldn't mind, just hold your phone and just say a couple of words really quickly on your phone. It can be like totally casual, just like a selfie, social media post, and that'd be great. Don't feel like you have to overdo it.
Yeah, it's it's charming. People get it. We all get it. It's charming.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
What do we like? We like blooper reels. They're funny. They're charming.
Exactly.
It's the same thing like when you're giving a toast at a wedding. Like if you mumble or mess it up. In my vows at my wedding, I messed up my vows and everybody laughed. It's charming. It's part of the deal. We're human.
That's
so
great.
just do it. It's better.
You didn't say I don't by accident.
No, I said I was trying to say mind and body, and I said mobby.
Mobby.
Yeah.
An acronym.
Yeah. And then, you know, look, here's all those same clients on Spotify directly underneath that. And then underneath that is as many of the music videos as my music has appeared in that I could grab. Yeah. So I'm just throwing content at you. I'm like, look, this is the mountain of things. The reason why you should trust me and hire me. It's a skyscraper. All right. And this is going to grow as you grow. And, 25 years I've been doing this. So this is how it goes. And then underneath that, there is a section called Awards, Accolades, and Achievements, half bio, half career highlights. I'm telling you what you're going to see. It's just a guided tour. And then it's all because my marketing and branding thing is that I've got 11 awards now. So I'm going to tell you what they are. They're not Grammys. They're regional things. They're things that my working class clients have done for themselves. My music has helped these people achieve whatever goal they've achieved. And you got to update those frequently. And so I wanted to come up with a system where I could throw another panel on instead of having to tear everything down.
Yeah, that's great. And the nice thing about it is, we might look at it and think like, oh, it's not a Grammy. It's just this thing over here or something like that. But the truth is, somebody else who comes along, they think, if you show them like, oh, I won record of the year, that's great. But they might go look at that and go, if those aren't all your clients all the time, they might look at it and go, yeah, but that's not me. Whereas if somebody's coming in and they really need that nurturing and they want a first shot at something, and they might look at this other thing and go, wow, that's totally, like, that would be amazing if I got this award over here. And again, one of the things that I really applaud is, here you have described building a really successful production and mixing business that's succeeding very well for you and for your family. But, and you said, look, there's opportunity out there. There's a huge opportunity to work with people and work constantly. I mean, not everybody can say they're booked a month and a half out with their studio,
No, and I actually last year I made mistakes. I was booking 3 months out, and what actually I found is that it is not positive unless you've got a EP project or an album project, and they're like, we want to do it in the summer, and that's cool. But like, I was booking singles 3 months out because I was in such demand because of COVID. Again, it was like the barrier. Again, you said barrier to entry. I'm on Sound Better, so now all these people have access to me that would never have found me or had access to me all over the world before because of the internet. Thank the internet. And that's not to say they shouldn't. It's just they wouldn't have had access. And so I'm fielding a lot of leads. And so this again comes down to routine. So what I've started to do is, I like this net zero concept that Russ Hughes was talking to me about, where you pick one day a week where you force yourself to get everything to zero. Like, there's no unread emails there. So for me, I prefer Monday morning because I try not to work the weekends. So Monday morning, the first thing I do is clear every unread everything. And I go through everything and spend an hour or two. Like right now I'm on the podcast with you, but this would be my time. So I don't book anybody at 10 a.m. to noon on Monday morning, which is great because I have it for you. So then I'm going to start my first, contract after that. But you got to give yourself infrastructure time. You got to give your time for administration and bookkeeping and all these things. The more ahead of the game you can get on your business side, the better it is come tax time. And if you're not paying taxes, you're not making money. And if you're making money, you're paying taxes. And then the beauty is, I'm finally at a place where I get to start with write-offs, which everybody talks about write-offs. Everybody's always talked about write-offs, and you got to invest and you got to have life insurance. Everybody's talked about this stuff. And as a audio person coming up, I was like, with what money? Like, I'm barely making it paycheck to paycheck. I made more money as a waiter than I did as an audio person for a few years, way back when, And so it just, deep breaths, rock stars. If you're on the grind and you're focused and this is the right path for you, linear growth is exactly what you're looking for. So just know that if you grind the path and you stay doing it and you again, try and get every little, corner smoothed out, and little small goals, make your goals. I've got a whiteboard. I wish I could show you, but I've got a giant, 4-foot whiteboard that is my business pipeline board. And so on it says February 2022, and it has every active client. And then it has the number of song that they're working on. It has the money they owe me still right next to it. And then I have a series of color code things that show me where I am in the process. And I'm constantly updating my pipeline board, because at any given moment when I'm having a panic attack about money, I walk over to my board and I look and I say, okay, what can I close in the next month before my bills are due? And I can add it all up. It's all right there. And I say, okay, well, there's this and this and this. And then I say, what can I do? And it also helps you prioritize, because for me, I have so many balls in the air at one time. Then somebody sends me a vocal file from Europe. And I'm like, oh, here's your vocal file that I was waiting on for 3 weeks or something like that. Suddenly I can close this contract because I can finish the song and I can get a close on that. So knowing where you're at in your business helps you prioritize your daily timeline. So either you're booked to the day, which I am, but you also have these floating random projects. So not only do you need time every week to close all your messages and communication threads, you also need time to get caught up on work. So my wife stopped working on Mondays as a vocal coach. She stopped teaching on Mondays because she says, no, Monday's my day for me. And she works on her singing stuff. She's dealing with band bookings and whatnot. And so I'm trying to start adopting that. And I'm too busy to just take a whole day off. But what you want to do is you want to write onto your schedule in your routine time to do the things that we don't think about, because if you don't do them, they won't get done.
Right.
And then they pile up on you and the anxiety gets higher. And then you get more introverted and we turtle shell our neck into our little turtle shell. And we say, well, I can only do this one thing, which is make music. And I'm just going to keep making that. But then you don't have any new clients because you're not communicating. You're not selling. So you have, if you're like me, routine is always better than putting it off. I'd rather get things out of the way. I'd say, okay, Monday morning, 4 hours. I'm in here at 10 a.m. I'm going to spend till 2 o'clock doing emails, correspondences, bookkeeping. I'm going to get it all done because then I have all week to make music. And I'll field little tiny things on the way in that happen, but I'm not looking at a mountain of emails. And everybody in the adult world works on Mondays. Everybody hits the ground running and they're always like, all right, Monday morning, let's get stuff done. So it's a good way to do it because also Nashville has what I love to call optional Friday. And you know that like people just don't show up on Fridays sometimes, or they take a half day, and a lot of business gets done on the golf course, but not since COVID. But you notice that like Nashvillians very commonly leave at lunch on Friday and they go have like a business meeting and then they have a beer and go home.
Well, I mean, we live in a culture too where the live show is part of the equation, part of the daily routine too. So people are going to those Thursday night shows, Friday night shows, and everything. Do you feel like the time you've spent watching YouTube videos, trying out mix tricks, and tweaking version after version of your mixes has not gotten you anywhere? Have you been looking for a simple or straightforward step-by-step process for creating a pro mix that won't take years to learn? What if you could learn that process from a Grammy-winning mix engineer who understood all your mixing struggles and could coach you through them? If you struggle with any of these questions, then the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass is for you. Now you can discover a proven step-by-step mix system from Grammy-winning mixer Craig Alvin for consistently creating a pro-quality mix from your home studio that will sound amazing everywhere. Here's a quote from one of the students. Absolutely the most informative and helpful block of information mentoring on the mix process I've ever been a part of. This was like sitting behind a mix engineer for years, watching and picking up tips along the way, condensed into a 6 to 7 hour session. Look, when you're ready to take your mixes to Grammy-winning quality, then go to ultimatemixingmasterclass.com and go check out Craig's ultimate snare mixing trick now for free. So let me just go to this last part of your website, which is great, which is the contact form, and I'll describe what I'm seeing. It's down at the bottom. Well, I don't know if it's the full bottom. It keeps going right from there. But you ask for people's name, their email address, their phone number, and then this one's brilliant: their WhatsApp number, so that international clients can contact you and connect. And then social media link for messaging. Again, sometimes people want to use DM messaging in different apps, and that crosses borders and boundaries and phone challenges and stuff. And then job needed. You've got a pull down list where it's like, do you want full production, post-production editing and tuning? Do you want mixing, mastering? Do you just want hourly studio time? Do you want co-writing?
I'm trying to get them to tell me as much information as possible so that when I come to the table to respond to them, I can set the hook in the fish. Yeah. And I'm not starting with questions.
Yeah. And then there's a, fill in whatever you want here for project detail needs where they can tell their story and write it in. And then below that is budget, where it's like, I've got no budget. I got some budget, sizable, it goes from $0 budget all the way up to open budget. You want an all-inclusive artist development package. And that's smart because that helps people make a call on it. And maybe, you really do want to filter out the incoming too, because you want to talk to people that are there for a reason, and they know what that reason is. So you can get down to the conversation of how you can help them. But this is great stuff, dude. And we have come sadly to the end of yet another podcast episode.
Oh no.
So let me ask you what the rock stars want to know, which is, how would you like them to go reach out to you and find you? What if they're ready to make their next hit record? What if they've got, a son or a daughter who's an incredible singer and they are looking for somebody to help them take them across the finish line with their music and production? Where would you like the rock stars to go?
Well, I mean, okay. So the least taxed version of this, the one where I make the most profit, and I hate to be black and white about it, but is my website, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a direct contact from me, I'm not paying a percentage, which is 8% to Sound Better. So yes, I love Sound Better as a platform. Sound Better at its core is, again, like real estate, it's an escrow company. This is how they move money between the person who wants the house and the person who has the house. They use an escrow company because it's a lot of money and there's a loan involved. So what is Sound Better? It's an escrow company for music. And what does it do? It provides a safety net for both parties so that the money side is handled. And basically, because of the nature of Sound Better, I don't give them their mix until they've paid their full balance. And so there's an exchange that happens there. Obviously, I'm not going to push every client to that, because if we're not coming through that platform, I don't want to get taxed 8%.
And plus you may, I deal with this all the time too. There's a difference between having a conversation with somebody that you've already established a totally trusting relationship versus something that's brand new and nobody really knows anybody yet.
Yeah. Well, so again, this goes back to the content on my website. You notice most of it's video. Even there's a frequently asked questions section. And the frequently asked questions section is me answering questions, but in a video form. Why? Because I want you to hear my voice. I want you to know I'm a real human. I want you to see the studio. I want it to be as if you were virtually sitting in the room with me. This is the COVID concept. Everything's virtually in the room with me. So how do I get it beyond text information? Let's take it to video. And I just thought typing all that out and having you leave the page, because a unipage design is obviously far superior. We live in the Facebook world where you just doom scroll all day. So my website, it doom scrolls.
Scroll.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
I didn't come up with that. So to that end, how do I want you to contact me? By video chat, of all things. That's my favorite. Why? Because you can hear me laugh and you can see the look on my face, and I make goofy faces. Like I'm a funny human, and I don't mean that I think I'm like a comedian. I'm just a character because I'm my dad's son, and my dad is such a ridiculous comedian, and my oldest sister Rachel is literally like a living Muppet, if that reference makes any sense. She's such a character. She's so funny. And my other sister Jessica is this huge personality diva, kind of like, she's kind and wonderful and not that bad diva, but like the good like opera diva, but she's, anyways, beautiful and all that. So like, and my brother is this big charismatic karaoke type of dude who just gets up and like, it's got this amazing voice. And so like I've grown up with these big personalities, and we all move our hands and we have funny faces we do. And I'm most comfortable when I can see someone's eyes and I can see how they're reacting, or if they're confused, or if I've lost them, or if they're distracted. You can't get any of that on the phone.
Right.
And so I like video. What's the best? I want you to see. I want to show you the studio. I'll pick up the video and I show you the booth. There's so many benefits to video chat. So, and you can see if they're serious, because a lot of people are calling to waste your time. And a lot of people are calling to get your information because they're also producers. And so, video chat's always, in my opinion, the best thing. So
yeah, it's a virtual version of just meeting face to face.
Yeah. Next best thing would be phone call, then email, then for me, Sound Better. Although I do love Sound Better. I got to be honest. It's really made it very good for me. I'm a pro member, and I would say at this point, 80% of my business is coming through Sound Better.
Cool, man. Right
which
on.
is crazy. I have two last thoughts, and I lost them because we answered this question, but it was, I'm always huge on accountability, and I know we got to go, but accountability is, I think, the core to being successful. You have to be very specific in how you gauge yourself. And I believe that radical accountability is the secret to success, and both in a relationship with your spouse or whoever, but also in this whole process, because everybody's wearing fake gold diamond chains, and everybody's renting cars off Turo to make music videos, and everybody's posting on Instagram with filters. So an accountable like qualifier of who you are and where you're at And the honesty and authenticity of presenting it that way, I believe, is what connects with humans on an emotional level, because people hire you because they like you. Nobody wants to work with somebody they don't like. I want you to say it was fun. Oh yeah, what a nice guy. He was great. The music speaks for itself. But I want you to, the client, to walk away and or even walk into the situation and be like, oh yeah, he knows what he's talking about. This guy, right? Because it all comes down to how they treat you, every decision you make. And this, we talked, I said the multiverse concept, but this is the whole point. I'm trying to steer the funnel above just a basic website funnel. Everybody can just create that marketing thing, but I want you to feel me in every step of this and decide, yeah, you're the right guy for me.
That's great, man. Well, there's nothing like radical accountability by having a podcast with hundreds and hundreds of hours of chatting and revealing. But let me ask you this closing question, which we've done before, and we'll do it again. We're going to take the Wayback Studio machine. You're going to go back in time and find the slightly younger doctor. Maybe we'll just go back a few years or something like that before, the recent lockdowns and hunkering down in your studio and all that kind of stuff. And you go back and give yourself a little bit of advice and say, I know, here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio through the next few years. What advice would you go back and give yourself if you could?
That's hard. That's so hard. Can I give you one and a bonus? One of them is going to be techie and one of them is going to be more like just a slap in the face. So the slap in the face one is you have to remember that the entirety of the process relies on the house of cards that is acoustics and monitoring. And it doesn't matter how many 1176s you have. It doesn't matter how expensive your mic is. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters if you don't have your monitors dialed in. And people don't understand that at all. They don't understand it, or they just ignore it because it's not flashy and it's not sexy. Your monitors are the single most important part of the studio experience, just like the tires are the most important part of your car. The thing that connects you to the road.
Right.
And that's, again, nobody wants to buy a $1,400 set of tires for their car, but the car drives better, it handles better, and you're safer. So invest in your speakers with the intention of creating a setup that works for you, not against you. And that requires, like you went through Phantom Focus. I'm jealous of that. I want that. I'm using SonarWorks in addition to being in an acoustically treated 360 degrees of a treated room with PMC 228s, and then I have a secondary monitor set, my Polonis Model 42 Mark IIs, which are out of print, but they're lovely. They're like kind of like an Oratone type of setup. So it's the small speaker that's perfectly phase aligned per side. So you're getting a very good reference. And then I mix on the PMCs because they're exciting.
Right on.
You've got to get that dialed in. If that's not dialed in, it doesn't matter what else you're doing. It's always going to fight you. You're always going to bang your head against the wall. Please hear me, rock stars. Put 100% of your focus into your monitoring until you can get it to the point where your mixes automatically translate. You're looking for 90%, 95% translation where you go to the car and you go, yeah, that sounds like what I was working on.
Right. Just before you call mom.
Yeah, it's got to send, because otherwise, how can you ever send a mix with confidence?
Yeah. Well, so that's a great tip on the tech side. What's the other half of that advice you would give yourself?
That last 2 to 3 decibels of loudness, they are the game winning points. That it's that last thing that the mastering engineers do. They have that magic ability to get that extra loudness and have it sound extra good. It's not pumping. It's slightly distorted because you can't stop that, but not heavily distorted. It's still really clean. It's still somehow punchy. It's like, how are they doing this? And I'll drop this little nugget. There's an Isotope video where they talk about, there's a mastering engineer, and I wish I knew what his name was, but you can Google it up pretty quick. And he talks about rotating phase of the mix. There's a phase tool inside Isotope RX Advanced, and it's the phase tool. So you import the audio into Isotope standalone, and then you go to the phase tool, and there's a little bubble that you click that says suggest. and it does a bunch of algorithms, and it says, I think your mix is 42 degrees out of phase. And you say, well, but why? And then you say, but you know what? I'll trust you. And then you click render, and then you send it back into Pro Tools, and you render it, and you watch your mix go from asymmetrical to symmetrical. And I'm specifically talking about vertical alignment of the canvas. So when you're thinking of the waveform, and then this is up and down, positive and negative, it's the throw of the speakers, literally. As you go above positive to negative, right? It's the waveform. Not every sound is perfectly aligned. So what this video talks about is he shows you that you can rotate the phase of something, but the RMS stays the same. So iZotope is saying, based on the off-centerness of your file, we think if you rotate it this many degrees, it'll be perfectly symmetrical to the best of our math. And let me tell you something, they nailed it.
That's awesome. I haven't tried that yet. I'm excited to check that out now.
Welcome to free headroom. You just got a bonus of 2 to 3 decibels of headroom for free. What does that mean? It means that your peaks don't hit the compressors as hard. On a fundamental level of mixing, I started adopting this. And so here's the real tricks. And this is where I'm going to give you the wisdom, is that first thing I did was phase correct every single thing. And then my mix was out of phase with itself. And then I thought, okay, I did something wrong. Let me back up. Now what I do is I correct sections of audio. So because I'm using preset templates on the microphones, my vocal mic, the bass DI, if they're not directly related to the other piece, you don't have to worry about it. So I rotate bass phase by itself. It has nothing to do with the vocal. The lead vocal gets rotated perfectly in phase. The master guitar track, whoever's leading the production arrangement and has the biggest dynamic range, which you'll see, use that to suggest what the guitar should be. But since they all came through the same speaker cabinet and same microphones, we have to use I know we don't like the master-slave analogy anymore, but somebody's the phase master, and then you rotate all the other guitar overdubs the same degrees so that the guitars stay in phase to each other. And that was trippy. So so the acoustic guitars, I'm recording on the same vocal mic as my vocal, but they have nothing to do with each other. So all the acoustic guitars have to be rotated the same based on the master. So if it's a left-right acoustic, one of them suggests, the other one, you just suck it up and do the same rotation process. So just don't click suggest again. Put it into iZotope, render the phase, and you'd be surprised. It's pretty darn perfect. And so what's happening is, at a fundamental level, I'm altering the way peaks, transients hit compressors at a waveform level, and you're gaining headroom. So your compressors are functioning more optimally because they're not having to fall back from higher peaks, right? Because the detector circuits are mono. So this is where we get like super techie, but basically, you've seen a trumpet play, and the trumpet's totally asymmetrical, right? Everybody's seen that. It's like the most common thing. Brass is always asymmetrical.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But it's not DC
funny
offset.
On the screen.
Yeah, it's not DC offset. That's a completely different problem. So this phase rotation is money, and it's free headroom. So what does that mean? It means at the end of your processing chain, when you're slamming it into the pro limiter, Fab Filter Pro limiter, less things are getting chopped because less peaks are hitting the thing. So go watch the video, rock stars. It's the iZotope. It's a RX. It's a mastering video, and it's specifically like 5 minutes in. It's like halfway through the video. He talks. It's this one little golden gem, and I found that like a year ago, and I've been screwing with it ever since. And you could just wait till you print your mix, and you could run it then. But then individually, things will be off center, because you're rotating the mix. So it's the sum of the entire mix. And it's going to say, okay, well, here's where we think your mix needs to be. And then that'll work.
That's fascinating.
But
when do you decide to run it on your individual elements? After you've been building the mix or before you even start?
Well, remember, I'm primarily producing and mixing my own stuff. So my routine is static. So for me, after I record guitars, it's time to do guitar post. That is where I render the three mics into a mono signal so I can edit them easy.
Cool.
Right. And so what I'll do is I'll pare down the 3 mics into a mono track. It's very easy using the folders in Pro Tools, mono folder. And then you just commit the folder, and it spits out a rendered down. So usually I'll do like auto align or something and just double check and make sure everything's in phase and I don't have any problems. I might adjust the mics a little bit to get a different tone, and then I render it to mono. At that point, my first step is twofold. I'm going to denoise using our isotope spectral denoise when appropriate, and I'm going to then throw it over to advanced, and I'm going to rotate the phase like we talked about to maximize the canvas. And that's the best way to think about it. Maximize the canvas by creating symmetry on how you drew on the canvas.
That's awesome, man. Dude, well, thank you so much for sharing that tip. That's a great one. I haven't dove into that yet, but I'm excited to now. I guess we've already told the rock stars where to go find you. Rockstars, reminder that we'll have links in the show notes, so you can just scroll down too and go check out Daniel's website and music and other cool things. Dude, great to hang with you again, man. Thanks for hanging with us.
And just chase your happiness for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
Life's too short and you never know what's going to happen. So just try and create a situation where you're happy every day and you enjoy the process. And if you're not having fun with this, change it because life's too short and life's long. So try and find your happiness, rock stars, and try and enjoy music and don't forget to be a fan of music. Don't forget to study music. Don't forget to be excited about Indiana Jones theme songs and whatever. And man, I listened to a Barbra Streisand record. It's Send in the Clowns, 1970s, Barbra Streisand in front of a whole orchestra. It sounds just as good as today as it did back then.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as loud as it was, but go study because the strings are in the same place as the BBC library that I bought from Spitfire. They're like panned in the exact same position. So I was like, it just is because they're standards. So go study.
That's great. Well, yeah. And thank you again, rock stars, also for listening. And, it's a good thing life is long, so you can hang with us on this podcast, which is awesome.
All right.
Dude, I can't wait to see you around the studio, and thank you.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm going to come bomb your studio. I want to see everything and sit in your chair and be super drooly and jealous.
Please do, man. Please come listen.
All right, man. All my love to you. Take care. I'm so glad that you've got your studio up and running. I know it was funny for a minute with all the stuff that you were fighting for. Thanks again for fighting the good fight. You are a champion in the field. And thanks, Rockstars, for tuning in. And I'm here if anybody has any questions.
All right, man. Cheers.
All right, buddy. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. And if you want more free content from Recording Studio Rockstars, all you have to do is go to rsrockstars.com/email. Again, that's rsrockstars.com/email to enter your name and email, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, podcast updates, and even free gear giveaways for your studio. Just look for the link in the show notes below. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lij Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our amazing sponsors who help make this episode possible: OWC, Spectra 1964, Samply, and Isotope. Remember to use these coupon codes for special discounts. At isotope.com/rockstars, use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plug-in purchase, or start your extended 30-day free trial subscription to access many of their plugins. At Samply.app, sign up for a free account with 2 projects now, and later use the coupon code RSR20 to get 20% off the first 3 months when you upgrade to a pro account. At recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy, use the coupon ROCKSTAR for 10% off any course for a limited time. You will find links to all these awesome sponsors in our show notes. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars: Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, and John Richardson for additional podcast and video production. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in our next episode. Cheers.